Yeah, exactly. Oh, come on. For some reason, yep, now it's come up. About time. I was just got stuck in a loop. Anyway, you guys never learn, do you? From what I can see. As you know, we're using Restream today because I've run out of basically StreamYard. So basically, I've got until the 2nd when I get reset, which is tomorrow. So, shit happens. So I can't put any of these things up there at all. Just finished the other stream, Dom says. Oh, good for you, mate. Dylan says the same. And then Jay, hello to you. AG, back for Harry's stream round 2. And then all the other stuff, good morning. Yes, it's evening here. Oh, and one thing, I'm not even wearing my glasses. Hold on. I better get the other ones as well. Completely disorganized. Anyway, yes. Where's Blinky to call out the amateur time? Right one. Trying to get them the right way around. Yes, hit the like button before before Harry pops on. Oh God. Hit the like button. Yes. And I'll get down. G'day, Gunda. Yes, give them a clap. Yes. What can I say about this crowd that hasn't been said at all? And you know that it disappears. You should know on Restream. You should read the comments. They were there. If we store 400 grams of glycogen in our muscles, depending how big your muscles are, mate. I don't know how big your muscles are. They could be bigger. They could be smaller. Who knows? Only you know. And glycogen in our muscles. Do we know how much we usual depletion in medium to high intensity exercise, and therefore how many carbs could have after exercise to replenish? You shouldn't have any carbs. You don't need carbs. You should know that. Your gluconeogenesis will replenish all your glycogen. Remember, the other thing that Steve Finney and Jeff Volker showed is that when you basically become fat adapted, you're in the actual muscle cells, you actually have translocation because there are fats that are kept there, that are stored, and also there is basically, even around the heart, which is the heart muscle, there is fat. That's why you need a certain amount of visceral or around the organs fat. That is energy for that. Too much excessive is not a good thing, but you still need some. What happens is a translocation, and what they've actually done is they've actually done biopsies on their athletes to verify this. So this is not, make-believe stuff. This is real stuff. What happens is a translocation between glycogen stores and fat stores. They shift, which means that the muscle actually reduces the prioritization of glucose to that. So if you fat adapt and then you throw in a whole lot of sugar, you're going to get this is why you get a big spike in insulin. Why? Because there's less, the prioritization of storage has been reduced. This is why you shouldn't be switching back and forward, cheating continuously. The occasional one thing, continuous, not a good thing. Anyway, so, and it depends on your muscle size. It depends on all sorts of factors. Your liver health. So if your liver is not very healthy, too fibrotic, you'll have less storage capacity. So there's a lot of factors at play. How much? To say specifically for you, AG, no idea. But the best thing to do is basically allow the body to generate as much as required and don't exceed. If you stay within the sort of low carb is basically 50 grams or less, pretty much. So what's 50 grams? 50 grams is on a 2,000 kilocalorie, which is, even though we talk about energy, not calories, but this is sort of like a rough thing in terms of what you're taking in. You're talking about 10%. Dom's talking about potatoes. Ah, typical these bloody Irish. What do you expect? They got a little potato, probably a gold potato. Probably they got a gnome right next to it. They probably got a 4-leaf clover as well. They probably do their prostate towards it. Like Muslims do to Mecca, they do towards the potato. Oh yes, those Irish. And where was the next one? Down we were. Harry, if you were to pure cook and eat sweet potato with white potato, which one do you think would be better to consume? Thank you. It depends. Not all sweet potatoes are the same. You've got the sweet potatoes which are purple, like the ones you find in Okinawa, and they tend to have less sugar, so less glucose. And also, they tend to be more fibrotic, which basically means it slows down the uptake of glucose. So that's a bit different between a sweet potato, a standard one like what do they call the golden sweet potatoes or whatever? They have funny names for them. I think they call them golden in Australia. Those ones tend to basically also have higher oxalates than the actual white potato, as an example. So, and they tend to be higher in carbs as well, or similar to white potato. So, which one would you go? Then there is also, nightshade. They are a nightshade, so there are, issues there. So, if you're depending on your susceptibility, so it's all that sort of stuff. So, Alex has moved to Norway. And where are we? Or holidaying. Yeah, where was I again? So pretty much, if you're eating a pure potato diet, you'd have an insulin to glucagon sort of a 4. If you added a bit of butter to it, it'd probably shoot it up to about 6 or 7. Doesn't we're talking about a bit of butter, not here massive amounts of butter. So you'd still basically have the capacity to burn fat when you're not eating potatoes under those. That's why when people do the potato diet, very unhealthy in terms of micronutrients and all that. I mean, even the guy that actually did the long fast of 386 days, he was given a whole lot of micronutrients because you still need cofactors for specific enzymatic processes. So doing it for too long is going to get you into trouble. So, and that's where you end up with all sorts of breakdown of tissue and all sorts of things long term when you do a potato diet. Not a very healthy thing. Yes, you can lose weight. You can lose weight with cyanide. You can lose weight with a lot of different things, but what is healthy and what isn't is a completely different thing. Protein-rich diet is much healthier. Why? Because we have such a high requirement for enzymes and all that, and also animal foods tend to be higher in the micronutrient components that we need to basically function well. I will be doing videos in the future covering some of these issues, like some of the issues that I have, which is certain issues like methylation issues of the choline side, things like glucose 6-phosphate deficiency. I've got a heterozygous type, but that's an issue as well. And what are the nutrients required? There's quite a few people in Europe that have those sort of genetics as well. So, it's the first enzymatic stage of glycolysis. So, yes, let that be a lesson to you. Now, where am I? I'm nearly catching up. I'm getting there. Do, 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 do. And I really like Alex's question. And why do you want to eat a potato? And then Richard turns up. Evening all. Now let's get back to this part. I can throw that up there. Evening to you, Richard, as well. G'day, Tom. And yes, I just managed to get the laundry done. That's the whole thing. I was just basically putting everything up, putting everything in the other room, and it's all over. So there's 3 different rooms. There's things hanging, drying out. So yes, it's all over the place. I was running around like a chook with my head cut off. I'm out of time. Yeah, panic and mayhem, basically. But I got there 14 minutes late. I can't still see the comments. Oh, well, Actually, I've noticed, look, guys, when you're actually putting, a lot of you still are putting comments with URLs, and I don't know how to bloody disable that bloody damn thing in YouTube here. I may have to search and try and find a bloody video, somebody explaining it how to do it. Must be a way. But put the name of the damn thing, put the name of the page, or put the name of the thing, and then at least we can search it, whoever wants to. If I notice the comments, I will search it and actually find the URL and then post it, because with mine, since it's my channel, it doesn't blow away anything. So, yeah, that's the only way around some of these things. It's frustrating, I know. It annoys me no end, because I've got no problems with you guys putting links and stuff like that. It allows me, if you found a crackpot or something somebody's saying which is ridiculous, I like to go and see it, check it out. It's really made it difficult the way YouTube has sort of changed the settings and all this sort of shit. It annoys me quite a bit. And it makes it difficult for me to interact. That's why I usually say to a lot of people, just send me an email. The other video that I did on that guy with the prion bullshit, basically also was through a video. I didn't even know about this guy. I didn't even check his bios, probably because he's also a cardiologist, but so many vegan cardiologists, which are fucking cockwombles and have no idea about these things. Yeah. I like the thing that Alex said. He's probably is a parasite, and he's probably looking to milk people who have taken the jab, that are scared and fearful, creating fear in them. Yes. So it's unfortunate that the world has people like that are more concerned about extracting money out of people's pockets. But anyway, with fear. Look, some of the stuff that he said I agree with, actually, about the lockdowns and stuff like that. I don't disagree with that, because I think it's over the top what governments are doing. But, he doesn't help the rest of us who are arguing those points when he argues nonsense. A child could Google and find out the exact type of helix, whether it's an alpha or beta helix, in terms of prions. It doesn't take an expert, fucking pisses me off, because it undermines, because other people are going to pick that up and going to go, oh, look at all these people that are opposed to these things. Yeah. And he had a go at basically the only vaccine that basically on paper, we don't have 5 to 7 years trials, on paper is basically the cleanest one. It doesn't have any of the problems, any of the concerns that people have talked about. It doesn't have. So, even the polyethylene thing that people bant about with the other ones. All these things that are actually out there, nothing to see. And the last trial that was actually done, the recent one, 30,000 people, it was pretty good from what I can see. I went and looked at it, and any side effects was typical what you would get from a typical vaccine. You get the adjunct sensitizing the immune system. It rushes in the immune response. That immune response is going to give you a bit of headache, a bit of a flu sort of things. That's normal. That's what the immune system does. Whether it's a virus that comes in or anything that it actually takes off, you get a common cold, a little cold, immediately the immune system, barks up and goes for it. That gives you some of those symptoms. That is normal. That's what you're supposed to get. So let's not over-exaggerate. That's why they do double-blind placebo, because as even that guy that in the video that Alex said is quite clear, even people on placebo get these side effects, and they think, because sometimes your brain, can make you feel sick. What do you think? Stress can really harm you. So yes, think positive thoughts, and you'll live longer. I'm good, Dylan. Always good. DJ Predictors, good to see you, mate. I think DJ Projectors, I think one of your comments also got wiped. I noticed that I couldn't actually see the damn whole thing. There's a couple of people that have actually had, and when I've picked them up and I've realised them, I've tried to copy and paste, but it's really hard. You can't get all the whole damn thing. So it is bloody annoying, all this sort of stuff. Drives me up the wall. So I've got to find some way, 8 new seasoned potatoes. Woke up next day with a terrible carb hangover. These bloody Irish boys. What can I say? If they could marry a spud, they'd marry it. Couldn't help myself. G'day, Bjorn. Good to see you, mate. Exactly. Because it's Restream. And if you actually put them before the live stream fires off, I've said this before, Alex, you get your messages truncated. So I had to read them out earlier. Were you paying attention? Back of the class, you naughty boy. We'll sort you out later. So you're in Norway. What are you doing there? You're on holidays or something, or escaping family. One of the two. G'day, Fluffy Rainbows. Good to see you. What do you think of our ancestral salt sauce? Whose ancestral salt sauce? A bit more information, Dylan. I get salt, as I've said before. I've showed people. Probably need to do a video on salt. Salt microplastics, different types. Also, some of the heavy metals that are actually in the mined salts and differences between areas. So, I'll probably need to do something there to cover it properly in that regard. But, anyway, if you have excess body fat to lose, wouldn't consuming pure protein be ideal? Burn your own fat for energy? Well, precisely. I mean, that's the whole idea. It's a bit like, how can I put it? It's a bit like doing a protein fast. It's like, you talk about the fasting mimicking diets. You're fasting from energy so you can consume your own energy, in a sense. Obviously, if you run very low on energy, eventually you'll know. It's called rabbit starvation. But if you're eating a standard steak, it's still got a bit of fat on there. It's providing enough for some of the, you still need some to come in, not a lot, and the rest you can take from your body. That's why when you have a more like that rat, does protein cause problems to your kidneys? No, it doesn't. We know. Makes you a big fucking rat, and it gives you big balls, a big penis, and also big kidneys, so you can process all that. Thought I'd throw the other stuff in there's extra. Excite the natives. But anyway, in a sense, it does actually do a bit of that other stuff with the stuff downstairs. It does improve all that sort of stuff. But that's a side benefit. But the reality is that you will lean out. This is what bodybuilders do. They sort of, when they do a cut, they go high protein, they cut back on fat and all that, and they cut their own fat out. It's well known. It's been done for years. And those rats, it works in all animals, even the little rats, and they will lean out very quickly. So I enjoy my fat. You know, as even my friend says, oh, she knows, even now, she actually Ling made me this little sort of, it's pure decadent. It's sort of a cake, and it's made of fat cream. So it's like basically, forget about it. This is not, it's like basically like that guy that was doing 5,000 calories, like a massive fat hits. Well, that's exactly what it is. And I only had half of it, and I was tempted to have the other half. So no, I haven't been leaning out on high protein. No, but when I do occasionally do it, I do drop. Everybody does. It's the easiest way to do a cut in that regard. Yes. Because remember, when you take in fat that comes through the chylomicrons, it goes to the adipose tissue. It'll go through all the thoracic duct, out throughout the whole body, into all the different cells as much. But it actually, there's like a bit of a coordination. Different cells take at different times. And so it'll move through about 10 minutes. It'll go to the other adipose tissue, drop some off. It'll get a signal from the liver and actually say, okay, we can take this amount to process. So it'll drop off a bit at the fat cell. It'll run to the liver and take the other stuff in. So when you're eating fat, you are basically storing a bit that if your body is not using it at that time. But this is the important but. When you're eating carbs, you shut off the ability to access that fat. When you're in a low carbohydrate state, that's not a problem, because even if you put it some away, when you're not eating, hormone sensitive lipase, because insulin is low, is going to be activated because you run out eventually. You go, oh, okay, I've had the meal, I've repleted my fat stores, I've taken in the different cells, I've oxidized all this, and but now I need more, and that's when it gets released from the fat cells. But if you're insulin resistant, or you've had some carbs and you've increased the insulin to glucagon, well, then you can't produce demand-driven sugar and you can't access fat. So what do? You either get hungry for more sugar or you start catabolizing. See, that's the whole thing. The whole idea is you don't want to do things like that. So energy is hormonally controlled, what you can access at a specific point. So it's really important to understand. You can have as much protein as you like. Your insulin to glucagon will stay 1.3. It will not rise. You will not create sugar. So that doesn't happen. And the reality is that if the body is based, even excess sugar, it'll actually dump it out of the kidneys. So not a good thing, but the thing is, this is what happened. The body can regulate anything, or it won't absorb it in, it won't take it in. It will slow down the sort of peristalsis. It'll actually slow down gut motility deliberately. That's why you end up, when you have a big steak and that, sometimes you don't feel like anything and you digest over a long period, 6 up to 8 hours sometimes, where any carbs will just go immediately into anything. So that's the difference in that sort of stuff. That is why it's all, there are enzymes that regulate how quick they'll be taken in. The difference is, it's a question. I always talk about quality of protein, what the high utilization, and so I prioritize eggs, steaks, fish protein, those sort of proteins that I know have got good utilization. So fish protein has got the same utilization as red meat. It's the same, Only eggs have got higher utilization. It's just the way the aminos are sort of composed that gives them better utilization. Bioavailability, again, eggs and dairy are the top, the bee's knees. But at the end of the day, how you want to compose the energy, how much you want to use of your own energy, how much you want to take in, that all depends on how much you want to lean out quicker, how quick and all these sort of things. But again, to tap into those energy stores, you need to be insulin sensitive and you need to have fixed up any derangements you have. You, Bjorn, not a problem. You don't have those issues. I mean, I don't have those issues. And so when I cut, I lose quickly. I go into ketosis and lose quickly. My ketones jump up, But when I'm not cutting, no, my ketones sort of drop quite into that low range you see with a Maasai when they're eating every day. They're low grade, sometimes even really low because, especially if I have ice cream, that really does it. What was the other one? Again, the bigger, smarter thing put out salt licks for us. Yes. Nothing like a salt lick. You Kiwis are into that sort of stuff. Bit of salt for the lamb, Take advantage with salt. God, what can I say? I couldn't help it. You sort of walked right into that one, Richard. How nice of them. The Kiwis, Oh my God. Ancient humans usually lived by the coastline. Yeah, exactly. Abundance of salt or riverbeds. Until we actually created civilization, there is no archaeological evidence into the forests. We actually basically followed river systems, and we may have ventured beyond the river systems and the coastal areas when we were hunting. We primarily focused on living and settling and cooking along the rivers and basically coastal areas. And that's the areas where we've got all the sort of, like even in Africa, East Africa, there's this long corridor of all these river systems and, settlements on either side of humans or early humans. It's the same thing we find, around the world. People were actually following the coast to get out of Africa or following river systems to move through different continents. It's the same everywhere. It's only when civilization comes along, you've got animal power, horsepower and oxen and stuff like that. And you can start basically cutting down forests. Well, obviously, because you want also to plant kibble. But you've got the capacity at that stage. So makes a big difference in that regard. Even people in the steppes, they follow river systems. That's how they used to move around. So, it's all quite interesting. Prior to tillage, yes. What percentage of the diet was plants? Very fucking little. Absolutely very fucking little. In some periods, there was practically none. Depends on the period. That's when our isotope analysis of our bones showed that we were hypercarnivores, which was practically nothing, in a sense. In some collagen, which is mineralized bone, in some collagen, when we looked at it, there was, next to nothing in terms of, trace, even sometimes not even trace elements of basically N14, which is coming from plants. So extremely low. There were periods when interglacial periods, which are warmer. This was around just prior to about 200,000 years ago when it comes to the Homo sapiens, the recent hominin of the genus Homo. So that group was about just prior to 200. There was an interglacial warm period. We saw the shift in the ApoE because they must have, and also some of the collagen of some regions of the world, not all regions, some of the warmer regions, we saw an uptake of plants more, not in the colder regions, but more in the warmer regions. And then we actually saw there was another period. This was slightly before, around about 100 odd thousand years, that the planet started warming again, and it actually warmed more than the previous time. Um, and what that did was it actually created more abundance in terms of plants. And that's where we saw the shift among some humans in the more equatorial type regions with the new ApoE 22. So that means the chylomicron resident time in the actual bloodstream actually increased. So you wouldn't get too much fat and sugar at the same time in the liver. So it made them more. It made those people more able to deal. But even though they were more able, we're talking about, in relative terms, we're talking about very small amounts still today. These people still become insulin resistant. They still become sick when they eat too many carbs, even with that. So we're talking about very small amounts. And the isotope analysis shows that it was a very small amount. They were still super carnivores. They weren't hyper carnivores. They were super carnivores. They still had some plants in them, and it was a small percentage of their diet, anywhere between 10 to 15% in those periods. And that's what the collagen tells us. But in reality, the majority of time, humans were accessing animal. That's what they chased out. They moved out of Africa and around the world after animals, not plants. If they wanted plants, they could have stayed in the forests of Africa. They moved out into the open plains of all these regions, and in Central Asia and all that, where there was shitloads of animals. That's where we found a lot of the animals that we domesticated, like the horse, the oxens. All these animals that we found are primarily come from those sort of regions. The cows, all these different animals that exist. A lot of them come from those regions, bar camels, which do originate within, the Middle East type areas. So, but a lot of the other ones do come from those other regions. It's the reason why people also from those regions have lactose persistent genes, because where the Middle Eastern people have primarily lactose persistent gene, they have a type which is primarily that for camels, which is an A2 type, slightly different. Even the casein type, which they can tolerate, is slightly different. So, yeah, those are the sort of. So we know from that information of the Indo-Europeans and adaptation, the types, we know that primarily the type of animals that they would have actually had dealt with. So it's a sort of a giveaway. We have two types of genes, where the Maasai have one. Some of the others around the world have one. Also the Middle Eastern people have one type as well. So, where the people of Central Asia, or the Indo-Europeans, you could say, those populations have more adaptation to milk in that regard, a more diverse adaptation. So very interesting. And that's why they've got more genetics adaptation to milk than other populations. Anyway, I wonder if the massive vaccination of the world runs the risk of creating not dangerous mutations of the virus. No, I don't subscribe to that, because the vaccines are not the complete virus, only the spike. So that they don't have the full thing. They're not a virus. They are a component of a virus. That's all they are. So that's not possible in that regard. But you can expect long COVID symptoms from the mRNA and the viral vector ones, and you can expect probably some autoimmunity, some issues with, the Johnson & Johnson has some neurological issues that are created. And there's actually a study out. I think I posted that on. Did I say? I think I said, posted it on something that Alex said. Anyway, so yeah. So basically, there's issues with a lot of these sort of things. All vaccines, I actually did bring. Here's my vaccination record. So basically, for people, they think that I'm not an anti-vaxxer, never have been, you know. So that was my tetanus one. I'll just show you a couple. So that was typhoid. Obviously, when you go to the tropics, the hepatitis A and B, whatever. So there's a couple that that was a double. I had to do a double thing for that one. So as I said, I won't show any more. That's about it. I've never been an anti-vaxxer, but the difference is these vaccines that I've done have gone through 5 to 7 years of trials and testing, and we know the genetics, the genetic profile, the susceptibilities, and everything else. All these ones have not. So that's why I'm holding off as long as possible and sticking to vitamin D, which is my protection. It's a respiratory infection after all. And I will not look, when it comes to mRNA and viral vector ones, they were used in oncology and they were a failure and create a lot of issues. I don't think they will ever be safe. mRNA type and the viral vector ones, as far as I'm concerned, they should be turfed, never be used in vaccines ever. Traditional vaccines, like for instance, the new Indian one that's out, seems pretty good on paper. The Novavax one also seems pretty good on paper. Doesn't show any, because it's localized. You get a localized pain, which is the adjunct, sensitizes the immune system. The immune system runs in, deals with it, cleans it all up. It can't get in the cell. It can't basically stick to any cell, even if it sits at the receptor, because it's got the morphology to be able to bind. It can't go in because of the prolines, so it can't even go in the cell. Can eventually, so even if you get a bit in the bloodstream, it's irrelevant. It can't go into a cell to replicate. It doesn't have the machinery. So pretty much it's a non-issue. It's probably the two safest on paper. But as I said, 5 or 7 years haven't gone past. There may be still groups out there that could be potentially susceptible to elements of but that would make them also susceptible to the virus itself. So it's a moot point at that point. Take your chances either way. I don't think Novavax is a problem. I don't think the Indian one is going to be a problem either. But at the end of the day, it's up to people whether they want to basically wait for the 5 to 7 years, which is what normal testable periods for vaccines is, or not. That's up to them. I don't. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not taking anything at the moment. I'm sticking to vitamin D as my protection. And if, I'm not going to say too much about, passports and those sort of issues. You never know. There may be things online that could be available, making life easy for some people. But I won't go into anything. I don't encourage any criminality or anything. But I'll leave it at that. But the reality is that these things, some of them should not be used at all. Now, as far as the actual mRNA ones and the viral vector, which uses a nanoparticle and the machineries inside, I can only see one use for them. Like if somebody wanted to put CRISPR inside and then go in and modify your genes so you could actually get longevity, it would be a very good technology in that regard. It would be a really good technology to rearrange some genetic material to give you longevity and reduce the ability of senescence and stuff like that. So it would probably be a good technology in the long run. Right now, it's still early days. It's not very advanced. It still has a lot of issues, a lot of things that people don't know about or have worked out in that regard. But I wouldn't touch that shit at all. I don't think it should be part of any vaccine, either one of those technologies. I think they should be dumped as far as vaccines go. But unfortunately, a lot of governments are starting to push these ones for whatever reason. I don't know what the agenda is of these governments. Is it because they can actually wheel them out faster compared to the others, the more traditional ones that take longer to develop? Possibly. But that's not an excuse to use stuff that has more problems with it. So that's my personal view. And I'm not going to at this stage unless I'm forced. I mean, even I'm not even taking Novavax. I'm not taking anything at this stage. I'm just using vitamin D. But as if I eventually get to the stage where my job security may be on the line and all that, I may take the plunge. If I'm going to take the plunge, I'm going to take the plunge with something which is more traditional and seems from the study that they actually did, there was no sort of strange side effects, and I didn't expect anything other than the normal response that you would get from a vaccine. But there could be things in there, or there could be basically interactions between even the spike that we don't know about. But then again, it could happen with a real virus. So I'll just wait until the additional, a lot of people will take it and see how it plays out. On paper, it looks pretty good. And if you have to take something, then that's probably one of the safer options. But that's up to you. What people do, I never tell people what to do and what to put in their bodies. What you do is your business. You need to do your own research, and you need to decide whether something is appropriate for you or not. These things are not for me or a doctor or government to tell you what to do. It's simple as that. As regards to placebo, are we sure we know what is in the placebo? The placebo, I think, is just a sort of, from what I know, it's just a saline type solution. So it's basically, nothing different than no, there isn't anything that. It's just a saline type solution. So not an issue whatsoever. But people, because the placebo effect can be very powerful, and sometimes people, if they think they've had the jab, they literally react as if they had the jab. It's a psychological thing, and it does work. Placebo effect is very powerful. This is why they do double blind. That is why not even the researchers knew who was taking it out of the 30,000, because not to affect the study. That's why they do double blind, placebo controlled. That's the whole purpose of that. That's why it's called that. So Alex is out of the running on that one. Does cooking with vinegar increase nutrient availability? Depends what you're cooking. Are you cooking bones? Yes, you can get more out cutting straight. The problem with, if you put vinegar on a steak and you cook it, you could potentially lose some nutrients, because if you're actually cooking on a hot plate or stuff like that. So, but if you're actually like pressure cooker or something, and everything's retained in it, or a slow cooker, yeah. But do you need it? Unless you're doing bone broths, yep. Me neither, but worry about them being forced to take it sooner or later. Seems like that's the way it is. Yeah, very much it seems like it is, and it is a worrying thing quite a bit. And I think it's wrong to basically force anyone to do anything against their will. I mean, I'm holding off for the same reasons that we don't have the 5 to 7 year studies. Simple as that. As I said, I'm not an anti-vaxxer, never have been, but I'm not an idiot as well. I'm not basically one to basically just take risks. I want to know that the stuff that I'm going to have injected in me that's been well researched, all the potential side effects on what people with what genetics and all that. Another reason why I did a genetic test, to be able to work all these things out. I know exactly which drugs can affect me negatively. So if I go into the hospital, I'm usually telling the doctor, I don't want this, 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 and this. I usually give them a whole fucking list. And they go, oh, because I say, I have all these conditions and I'm susceptible to this, 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 and this. So I make it quite clear what I don't want put into me, and I remind them. I actually literally had to remind one doctor, and eventually he wrote it down because he wouldn't fucking write it down. you know. So it was damn annoying, but eventually he wrote it down. So it was there, so they wouldn't use that. Somebody accidentally, in the rush of the moment. Yes. So, and if they gave me that substance, it can affect my kidneys. So definitely didn't want that. We want big kidneys and all those other things as well. Can you talk about our collagen needs in nutrition? I read that our body can make lysine and proline. Is that so limited nutrition? Do we benefit from extra? Not really. I mean, even remember the homocysteine stuff? The more methionine you give, the more you create in your body in terms of glycine. So the liver will create it. So our body is like a Swiss Army knife with a whole lot of enzymes that can do a lot of wonderful things. So even if you give the body muscle meat full of methionine, a lot of these things will be created and increased. So you don't need to necessarily consume collagen. And there's a downside of actually eating a lot of collagen powders and stuff like that. Some people are susceptible to oxalate production, and others are susceptible to basically where they're not getting good utilization because they're not getting enough in, and some of that can, is a waste of money in a sense. So I prefer, even when I do bone broths, I think I've discussed this before, and do a sort of a collagen, because I'm trying to access more of the minerals. I get some of the collagen material, but I also put meat, like I will put thin strips of meat and cook it in with a bone broth. So it's a sort of a meaty bone broth. It's not just bone broth on its own. So I'm trying to get basically a lot of the those important materials. And remember, leucine is an important factor as well in terms of some of these absorptions with the micronutrients as well, and the utilizing some of this stuff for muscle protein synthesis. So a lot of the collagens don't have enough leucine in many regards. So meat is fine. You pretty much only need meat. The body can utilize. I think a lot of people waste far too much money on a lot of these collagen supplements. Personally, that's my personal. I don't bother one iota. I used to, but now I have not bought a collagen supplement for, can't remember, a couple of years now. So I don't waste my money. Occasionally I'll make a bit of bone broth because I like it, with a bit of lemon juice and a bit of meat in it. And I prefer actually the chicken ones more because I like the taste with lemon. But that's me. I like the little chook. Yes. So my primarily most of my bone broths are usually chicken based, not beef or pork or anything else. Not that I haven't done those, but I actually prefer chicken, to be honest. Yes. Damn big rats. Is there a limit to how much protein we can make use of, and how much might that be? Look, the sand people of the Kalahari have been known, and this is a study that was actually, I think, Cordain funded, and this was years ago, but this was the Bushmen of the Kalahari. I discussed this in one of my earliest interviews with Bart Kay. So if you go back to, if you go to my playlist and you look at the actual, we actually talk about the study, but because it was copyrighted, we couldn't actually show it. But literally took it out and said, and I said, fine, So we didn't want to basically have YouTubia. That was in the early days when we were less reckless, as one would say. But and it was about 3.92 on average. That was on average. Sometimes they would have more per day. So on average, and not every day they were eating massive amounts, because there was, so some days they were having probably even, 4.5 grams per kilo body weight. So we're talking quite a bit of protein these people were having. So, and we know with that, the rat study that I actually showed you, 70%, where even the sand people are basically doing about, at maximum, they'd be doing, 50%. The rats were doing, and that is the equivalent of 30 years of a human life, 70%. Didn't seem to affect them. So, from what I can see, we have a very high tolerance. We can take in quite a bit, all mammals. So, I don't think we've done a whole lot of tests with a lot of people taking carbs, and carbs are a confounding variable that really can cause a lot of derangements there, because you can't access fat because insulin is high. You end up with a lot of the protein being converted to sugar. In this really, but that's because, and a lot of these studies are also done with a lot of protein powders, and so they rush into the body. They've got poor utilization, only about 17%. Like plants, so they're piss poor. That's why I don't like supplements for another reason. Poor utilization, and a lot of them, because of those circumstances, because of the structure and the insulinogenic effects, can be turned more into sugar. So, but when we talk about real food, like the Sand people and many other tribal populations, in some cases they gorged on so much meat. We're talking about multiple grams, consuming 60, 70% of their calories were coming directly from protein, the quantity of the food that they were consuming. So we're talking about massive amounts. I struggle to get to, I just get around 30, 35%. And I struggle, let alone doing double that would be and doing it for 30 years, like the rats equivalent. That'd be a hard slog. I don't think any person is likely to overdo it because of the satiety effect. They were deliberately encouraging the rats to eat more protein and giving it to them in formulations where they would uptake more. So, where we humans have basically, we don't have somebody deliberately putting something in us or whatever to encourage us to eat more. So once we get a satiety, we go, oh, I've had enough. So it's really hard to get over 50% for humans. It's really, not that we can't, we can, but it's really hard. And obviously that extra leucine will drive even more muscle protein synthesis. So, which can be a benefit. It's the reason why a lot of bodybuilders eat just shitloads. I mean, just look at them. They're eating up to those sort of levels, like the Sand people are, and sometimes those sort of levels. Not a problem. It's only when they start pumping, putting in carbohydrates, and injecting insulin and other anabolics, that they start getting into trouble health wise. But the old traditional bodybuilders used to just. I mean, I remember one of them, I can't remember his name, a British guy, used to sit down and he would have raw eggs and raw meat. I mean, platters of it. He would just devour an entire massive, a couple of platters full of meat, and he would just devour the whole lot. And he was a big boy, very muscular and lean as well, like those rats. So, yeah, we can do quite a bit. I mean, I love my fat. I wish I could give up on my cream and all that sort of stuff and all that, and sort of, I'm going to motivate myself one of these days and just lean out like I used to be when I was a youngster, which I did tend to have a high protein diet and didn't actually consume any cream. I just consumed very high protein type foods as a youngster, like even dairy products. and I was extremely lean. You could see my rib cage. So I know it works. The literature shows it. It works in animals. It works in, but it's sort of mentally to try and force yourself away from the goodies, the good stuff. So yes, better stay away from meat. Don't want to be Venus. Fluffy rainbows. Oh, I know you've got a witty sense of humour. That's why I love you. Yes, very much. Uh, oh, that was a nice one. Thanks. Oh, I love that. Thanks for the laugh. I never heard a lady say that. Well, Richard, you've lived a sheltered life with your furry friends. That's all I can say, mate. Bjorn, search for resolution 2361 European Council. Is that when the bureaucrats are going to put a muzzle on you? Fucking assholes. Fucking Nazis in Brussels. I don't believe in collagen supplements. Yeah, exactly. Eat adequate protein. My collagen source is chicken wings, about 10 pounds a week. Yes. Actually, yeah, when it comes to they are really a good source in that regard, and a much natural source and pretty good. Actually, they're quite nice as well. I literally do like chicken wings as well. I do get them, and and just literally munch through all the bones and everything. So you're getting all the minerals and stuff like that. People sometimes see me at work and I'm just gnawing through all these chicken bones, and they're going, "What the fuck?" Yeah, I'm getting all the minerals and stuff like that. It's mineralized, basically. It's mineralized collagen, basically, bones. So, yes, great stuff. Now, I can't promise it'll do other things. Oops. I went the wrong way. I scrolled the wrong way. That was, yes, very smart of me. Ladies, don't speak of such things, mouse. It's the lady code. Do you hear that, Mousy? Ensure that citizens are informed that the vaccination is not mandatory and that no one is under political, social, or other pressure to be vaccinated if they do not wish to do so. Okay, is that what it says? Oh, that's a good thing because it's a human rights thing. So it's part of the human rights code, is it? Yes. There's been a few people, because people have said, like a couple of European countries where people working in the medical field have been forced and told and threatened, "G'day, zombie," and have sort of found themselves under duress to basically comply with the rules. But as I say, at the end of the day, it's your body. You decide whether it goes in or doesn't go in. As I've always said, the least egregious or problematic one from on paper is Novavax. And if I was forced to take anything, that would be the only one. But at this stage, I'll stick to vitamin D and see how the remaining trials go. And because there's only 30,000, I'd like to see it, like in the others, go through a large population group, see if anything pops up or creeps up, and then look at what it is, then check my genetics, see do I have a susceptibility, and then determine from that sort of stuff. And then again, even if I do and I'm forced, can I mitigate it? So I'm always looking at different angles of stuff. So I'm always looking at these things. So whenever a new study comes out, I check it out. I don't necessarily basically do stuff. That's not the focus of this channel. But when somebody comes up with some crackpot idea and says something that is way out there, then I usually use that information that I've learned from the studies and go, no, you're wrong there. Because we don't want people using the wrong information. Let's criticize these things for the right reasons, not for the make-believe stuff, because that doesn't help anyone. It makes us sound like crackpots. We need to have legitimate reasons to basically put forward. And I think I've given you quite a bit of information on that regard in terms of clotting factors, autoimmune things, long COVID, symptoms, and all that sort of stuff. Or I think it'll end up be called long COVID syndrome, which you get from the mRNA, the viral vector to a lesser extent, and also from the virus itself. So, and it tends to be in people that have basically got more comorbidities, and people that got comorbidities, I would bet my bottom dollar probably got, because a lot of them, from what we've seen, have got low vitamin D status, and it usually goes people that got have got high comorbidities, usually are slightly overweight. They tend to basically have more difficulty in, their fat cells take up more of the vitamin D, even when they supplement. They under supplement. Some of them, most of them don't supplement because it's not basically pushed out there or encouraged. And so they tend to be the more vulnerable ones. It's just a bit like that. I get blisters so easy on my feet. I wonder if more collagen would be protective. What are you doing to get blisters? So, is the shoe that you're wearing adequate? Is it wide? Sometimes I have a tendency, if I'm not wearing the right shoe, the middle part of my leg tends to be wider. I've got a high arch, but it's wider in that middle part. And so if I get the wrong shoe, I will end up with blisters. But if I don't, I'm fine. So how the foot sits, because naturally we were never meant to be wearing shoes. Okay? And so by wearing shoes, if we don't have the right, so our feet sit properly in it, and if you've got a high arch or you've got a flat foot or whatever, you need to know these things. I mean, I've got a high arch. I've actually tested my foot, both my feet, to know exactly. So it's really important to know and get the right footwear, if you're going to wear footwear, to conform. And that's that, because I used to get some blisters, and when I got the right footwear, it all went away, because then the weight distribution on my feet was more even. That's an important thing. And how heavy you are also plays a factor. So, and it was when I was much heavier in the past that I got more blisters. So that's another factor, but also because of, I didn't have the right shoes and stuff like that. And I wasn't aware exactly about my feet, how they were and how they distributed weight. Council passed resolution about mandatory vaccinations, vaccine certificates, but its advice is not legally binding. Oh, is that what the resolution actually? Okay, gotcha. But it's not legally binding because there's probably the human rights stuff as well, that you can't mandate somebody to do something against their will. The state can't do that. That's human experimentation in a sense, or forcing you to do something like that. About salt, I meant how did we get it in the Paleolithic blood salt beds? Yeah, look, a lot of it, like the Maasai, don't actually go to salt beds. They just get it from the blood of their animals. So pretty much that's where they get it. Where a lot of the other tribal populations, they do go to riverbeds and get it from riverbeds. So it varies the degree that they get it. And again, we don't know how early humans, this is before plants were more, because we're in an interglacial warm period where there are more plants available and humans do access more of them, is that high insulin effect making their needs, different. So there's all these factors which we haven't really teased out properly in that regard. But when we look at old bones and all that, we do notice that because there is, sodium is very important for bone formation, and it's also very important within the inner mitochondrial membrane for actually energy production. So we know it's very important. So if you're depleted of sodium, you're not going to your energy production is not going to function properly. If you're low in the chloride part, your your pumps, your basically proton pumps in your gut, in your stomach, are not going to perform as well. So you're not going to get that acidity sort of. So you basically do need salt, but it will vary. It'll vary on activity level. It'll vary for a whole lot of factors. In winter, I don't consume as much because I don't sweat as much. It depends on my activity level and all that. I listen to my body. If I basically consume salt and I go, too much, or if I'm basically I feel this urge for more. So, but that's because I've sensitized my body to salt. And so I don't consume salt just willy nilly. I usually listen to my body. And I haven't, it's only probably one time in the last year where I've probably oversalted my food and realized. And the funny thing is, the day that I oversalted, I actually used less salt than the previous days. But I must have hit my threshold at that moment. And the body said, no, we don't need any more. And that's why, even though it was less, I actually thought it was more. But that was because my body was saying to me, enough, you've had enough. And then I eased off and had very little the other days and then went back to my sort of normal level. The body recycles, the kidneys recycle basically sodium, they recycle basically uric acid, and a number of the other minerals get recycled. Not everything gets excreted, and there's all this sort of balancing act that happens via the kidneys. So I always say to people, listen to your body. Don't listen to me about your salt intake, listen to your body. Your body knows best. Ah, yes, nothing like seafood. Yes. Actually, I've got some scallops as well, which are nice. I just need to. What am I going to do it? Probably sometime this week. I'll actually have to cook up scallops with butter and and cream, so that'll be nice. There you go. You see, it's unavoidable, Damn seafood making me consume more cream. Have you any plans, Harry, to do a carbon isotope video to accompany the N15 video? Yeah, I did when I did the Greek one, I covered some of that, but obviously, um, it needs to be covered properly as well. That was basically just to show that the ancient Greeks were highly carnivorous, and they pretty much consumed mostly ruminant animals and a bit of coastal fish. But I haven't probably done. I was going to I've downloaded shitloads of isotope analysis stuff, but I haven't actually sat down. I was going to do a series, but I never got around doing it. And I was going to do a series on the different population groups and how they transition from different diets and how the isotopes show some of this in terms of archaeology. And then I said, there are other priorities, so I dropped the whole thing. I will be doing something next year. Not this year. I've got too many things to do this year in terms of other critical things about health, about protein, and many other things. And so that's a lower priority as far as I'm concerned at this stage. And so, Dylan, I will be doing it next year. And I'll be doing a bit of a sort of an archaeological type thing with an archaeological bend to it and looking at the populations, the movements and stuff like that, and how we transitioned into kibble eating and how this happened and stuff like that to get a better idea, and also see the transitions in the isotopes so people can get it, and they go, oh, this is real. When you're eating these different ways, things shift in these ways, and it's so obvious because you've got the evidence there. So I want to do a series like that. It's sort of an archaeological spin to it, but that's for next year. I've done a few in this regard in terms of the past, and I've done a few in regards to the chimps in particular, about their hunting and stuff like that. I do want to do more on, but that's for next year as well. I'm going to do a series on the entire primate family. So that's all the primates. So we're going to go through all the different primates and show how some of the arguments that people put out there are bullshit. There'll be one on, there's a number of arguments that vegans make in regards to the type of animals we consume then and the type of animals now. So I'm going to cover that as well. But that's probably going to happen. Hopefully, it may even be this month, but more than likely in September when I'll get a chance. Now, I am taking a week off. Now, depending how much work I get into clearing out that bloody room, finish off the last parts and clean it up properly and set it up as an office. So if I do have enough time, I may do some of these type as fillers in that regard. It'll be part of the myths and falsehoods of veganism. So I'll throw that in, but I'll do an extensive one next year. But that one will be like a short and sharp one you can use as weaponry against. I've just, it's some stuff that Mick the Vegan says and a few others say a few crappy things, and which are complete fabrications on their part. But it's good to have a bit of evidence for you guys to be able to go, no, you're wrong, bang over the head, sort of. So you can deal with some of those cockwombles on the social media environment. What plants could our ancestors have eaten other than fruit and nuts? There's not really much. I mean, our ancestors didn't use like the green plants that we all tout about in the low carb community and all that. There's not much nutrition. We don't have a cecum anymore. And even the chimps and the apes and all that don't consume a lot. It's a starvation food that they'll have a bit, but not massive quantities. Probably the gorillas are the ones that would consume the majority of that. But even they do prefer other sources because they don't get enough nutrition from those. So pretty much, let me shift over. I should have done that half an hour ago. Yes, the Roy man, the fashionable Roy man is here anyway. And when we're talking about fruit and nuts, that's seasonal. So it would have been seasonal primarily. Most of the year, we consumed animal products. Even eggs were seasonal. So eggs were seasonal, even though it's an animal food. But we've got an adaptation, so it's not a problem. Most of us have. Eggs were seasonal, fruit was seasonal, nuts were seasonal, even certain crustaceans were seasonal, in periods when, depending on the latitude, when honey was available, some humans consumed some of it, but they consumed it as, as a total thing. It wasn't basically extracted from the honeycomb. It was together with the honeycomb, which, as I've shown, the quantities which I discussed, you don't get as much sugar and you get a lot of fat in that and proteins. So it's sort of a sweet, you could call it basically the original when you're having it in the honeycomb like that. It's like the original Atkins bar, but what the natural Atkins bar, if you want to call it that. So it still has a bit of sugar, but not a lot. And it's mostly protein and fat, which is what the honeycomb is made of. So we had very limited amount in that regard. People weren't going to waste their time going after plants. It was only if they were in abundance and easily available, and they were treats in that seasonal period, 1 or 2 months, and that was it. And then most of them were fallen on the ground and basically decomposed, and there was no refrigeration or anything. So that was it. So it was a short period of time. But also they ended up engaging the Randall cycle for those 1 or 2 months and increased their fat stores, which was a good thing because the more fat stores they had, they could actually survive the lean months in the middle of winter. So very important for them, for their survival. Hi all, g'day mate, Stanley. Hi all, greetings from the People's Republic of Deutschland. Greetings to you as well, mate. And, plants before fire, that's for sure. uh, from the land of tall humans. Yes, her wittiness never ends. Human physiology is optimized for hunting. Ah, yes, even throwing spears and throwing things very much, you know. So, yes, not many other animals can do that. Yes, definitely beyond. We're apex predators, always have been. That's why we were super hyper carnivores for a very, very long time. Until the environment changed, we had. Now, look, when it comes to the out hunting, the archaeological evidence isn't very clear. So we know that basically we saw this collapse in different parts of the world of megafauna when humans walked in, like in Australia and other parts of the world. But in some areas, it took quite a while to happen. So was it entirely humans or precipitated from climate change that we got into this much warmer interglacial period, which we're in at the moment? It's hard to say. And that limited our fatty food supply. So we were forced to consume a bit more starch to get energy. Not all of us, but depending on where you were on the planet. So that was another issue. And that's when we saw also the amylase, the amylase to break down starch actually increasing. And I always love how vegans say, "Oh, all those amylase that we have." Yeah, but when you look at tribal people, you don't see much. The majority of those are due to agriculture, not to tribal societies. Tribal societies have very small amounts of amylase, and that is why they can't cope with too much starch. That's why they get very sick, a lot of these tribal people, because they don't have. It takes a couple of generations of tribal people shifting, and then you start seeing these changes, but it doesn't happen immediately. So the early people that take up, eventually the body responds, producing more. It's, you can transcript more, but it takes sometimes, depending on the tribal group, can take a couple of generations. So, like the Pottinger's cat thing, takes a couple of generations. Ice cream. I made some of the Carney ice cream this week. Yeah, it's great, isn't it? My experiment was for 1,000 mils of cream, I used 3 egg yolks, no whites, and it turned quite nice. No eggy taste at all. Sounds good. I'm basically out of. If you're listening, Ling, I did forget to say when I saw you earlier, I'm out of ice cream, carnival ice cream. Just a reminder. Just kidding. Can our hormones affect collagen? Our hormones can affect all sorts of things. It's not our hormones. It's basically what are we deranging them by putting inappropriate things in our mouth, and then they get deranged, Dylan, and then certain things don't work properly. Depends what you mean. For a species appropriate diet, everything works the way it should. You shouldn't have any effects that are negative when it comes to collagen synthesis. If you're eating a lot of carbs, you will increase matrix metalloproteinases in your liver, and they will be expressed in a lot of tissues around the body. And MMPs, when they're too many produced because of eating inappropriate foods, you will also break down more collagen. Fat-soluble vitamins are very important for the regulation of these collagen-degrading enzymes. And the ability to basically transcript certain things also does depend slightly on hormones as well. And so if you're not eating species appropriate, your hormones could be out of whack and your body doing things that it shouldn't do, like breaking down tissue that it shouldn't do. So if you can't access fat and you're not eating enough, then you could be, and not getting enough protein as well, then you could be basically, tearing down bone and muscle like the vegans do. So it depends on what you're eating, how these hormones are going to be affected and what they will do in the body and how other systems will behave. So, yes, eat species appropriate, you won't have those problems. Got some in freezer without egg yolks. Yeah, that's Ling actually does it as well without, and that was nice as well. She does it pretty well. I tried the egg yolks and I just couldn't get it bloody right. Yeah, need to try and work it out. Someone did leave me the recipe, but I'm just haven't got around doing it. Doing a lot of other things this week, so did not get a chance. And that's a good comment. And we'll move. Several anabolic steroids were developed for treatment of burn victims, amongst other things. Yes. Are you vaxxed against ticks? No. Or are ticks not an issue in your area? No, they're not an issue in my area, Wacky Toaster. And I don't really know enough about ticks and vaccinations on ticks or stuff like that so I can't really comment on that issue. But no, and I'm not in an area that is susceptible to those things. We've just got some ants down here, but they don't have that similar effect. They have a different type of effect. So if you get sensitized to them and then you get bitten again, you could end up with an anaphylactic shock. But that's a different thing altogether. So since supplementing folate can deplete B12, can high B12 deplete folate? No, not an issue at all. Because because B12 is not only used for methylation, it's used for a number of other things. So no, you can actually get far more, and it's not the same. Folate actually requires more for certain of the process that it does. And the other thing is, you can take thousands of percent of folate, and you're not going to basically fix that methylation part. And even if some people think, because you've got an impaired glucose 6-phosphate, like I have, that's not going to fix it either. It's riboflavin. You've got to get the riboflavin in, Riboflavin fixes that and also reduces the amount of NADPH, so it reduces those sort of energy requirements. And choline is the other one that also, so if you're actually having more choline-rich foods, which are animal-based foods, you will get more choline in, and that extra choline basically takes off the pressure off the other pathway. Plus, the riboflavin improves that pathway. There's a video on mine that actually shows a study, dose dependency. You basically give riboflavin, homocysteine just goes down completely, very fast for those who have the MTHFR gene like I do. So it's a non-issue. You do not need to supplement folate. You do not need to supplement B12. You just need to eat animal foods and you'll be fine. You get folate from eggs. You get some folate from meat as well. You don't need as much, and the body can actually create from methionine. For the majority of people, it's very small people that have got certain genetics like myself, but majority of people will create from methionine. So if you eat a lot of methionine-rich foods, not only will you actually generate glycine and stuff like that, but at the same time, you will also, which is very important, convert part of that into choline and part of that into folate. That's how it works. So as long as you're eating more methionine, you can support both the choline pathway of methylation and the folate pathway without having to supplement at all. And homocysteine comes down. And you don't get, and also, the question about the glycine thing, that actually improves. So the body, when in response to more methionine, go and see, I've done the damn study, shown the study, I've done the damn video, just go and check it out. It's on my site. It actually shows you exactly the difference. They even infused methionine additionally in, and rather than affecting negatively the body, as people say, as people believe, this sort of urban bullshit or whatever you want to call it, that's been floating around, which it's basically garbage, which the plant-based arseholes have been circulating for a very long time. That's where all those myths come from. They're not true. They're bullshit. But a lot of people still believe them, unfortunately. So let me find that. I better find it. Oops. Now, Harry's channel. And the videos. And this one, are vegans right that meat increases homocysteine?
Were not in our favor.
Oh, how shock horror. They were not in the favour of the Vagoons. Oh, God, I'm shocked. Oh, God, absolutely shocked. God, that guy knows how to act, doesn't he? Let's continue. This is enjoyable. He's having too much fun.
Some of the data suggested that vegetarians seem to have a 50% greater risk of dying from breast cancer. Of course.
Vegetarians? Plant-based, what he means. He changes and he tells us. You'll find out later on when we actually talk about homocysteine levels and all that. That it's anyway. So that is the actual video. There, I'll put it in there so you people, you wonderful people, can actually go and check it out whenever, which covers this point and explains it quite clearly and shows the evidence for it. Something that you will never get from a Vagoon, showing you evidence. No, for them, it's pseudoscience and, nonsense. Oops, wrong. Where am I going? I've probably gone past it. Yeah. There we are. Yep. Yes. So basically, Dylan, nope, not a problem. Do not worry about that because your body knows how to deal with animal foods. It's been doing it for millions of years, and it will convert methionine to the stuff you need. So you'll have more than enough. If you don't eat enough folate, your body will produce it. If you don't eat enough choline, your body will produce it from methionine. And you will also, because you're getting enough, even if you have the MTH fast sort of situation, you will, because meat has got shitloads. As meat and dairy are the two highest sources of riboflavin. So if you've got a problem with MTHFR, please do not consume that sort of stuff, because that's going to cause you deficiency and potentially pernicious anemia. I've seen a lot of people that have come to me that end up with pernicious anemia being supplemented high doses of folate by their fucking crackpot naturopath. So, and the one that actually covers this is one that was done about a year ago. It's called Methylation Part 1 by yours truly. And we'll share that again. And then there's yours truly, and that's the location where it's at. And there is the result. So in response to riboflavin, for that, for this genotype, which is the one that I am. You can see that. Homozygous. And here we can actually see specifically where we're looking at changes in homocysteine. Well, when we're looking at sort of issues of riboflavin and other things like that. So riboflavin, as you can see, they all respond the same. Pretty much all of them will respond in a very similar way in terms of status. That's unimportant. When we're looking at those other two SNPs, there's not a lot of... Obviously, you can actually see... But this is the important one. See, when you're eating an animal-based diet, or when you're getting enough riboflavin, everybody's going to respond the same. But when you're basically looking at... a reduction in homocysteine compared to the, this is when you're looking at lower levels. These people, it's not going to make much difference because their enzyme is activated. It's actually working properly. This group here has got a very much underperforming, and look how it responds. Dose dependency. Take the riboflavin, it lowers the homocysteine rapidly. So that is the difference in response. So I'll put that in there for those who want to check out the MTHFR issue that keeps on popping up. And no, you do not need to supplement with damn folate because you'll end up giving yourself a B12 deficiency and pernicious anemia. It happens with a lot of older people, pernicious anemia, because they're consuming. I don't know how they get it into their head. As they get older, they think, I shouldn't be eating so much meat. And also they end up in nursing homes eating more plants and all that. So they get more folate and less B12 and they deplete. And then they end up with pernicious anemia. So, yes, not a good thing at all. Yes. Anyway, it's the way. But there is no Novavax here, Harry. 70% already vaccinated. Yeah, well, it's the... it is what it is. These people were pressured, intimidated, and the majority were scared shitless and weren't given good advice like, get your vitamin D levels up, eat better, nutrition. And because that didn't happen, out of fear, they went and got it. And others were forced because they were in frontline services and all that to keep their employment. So, yeah, it's not as high here, but that's because our rollout's been a bit more less organised. That's okay, Richard. Yep, I know you're on the other side of the pond, very late. Thanks for being here, mate. Appreciate it. Take care and see you next time. So, might there be some unknown positive to vitamin D decreasing a bit in winter? Might it be an ancestral phenomenon? Not really, no. Remember, people living in the tropics had the same all year round. So there is where we've adapted in the world, we were designed to basically get, and you were able to get a certain level, and your skin got a bit darker because you were out in the sun for 6 hours, 4 to 6 hours. So you slowly, you got more melanin in your skin to reduce the amount of uptake. So you took it over a very longer period of time. We generally take about 10 to 20,000 IUs from the sun, okay? Depending on our, so I usually say the golden number's around 10,000 IUs. Now, when you're in a colder climate, in the past, we used to be hunters. We were outdoors all the time. And we also ate foods that were animal foods that were higher in vitamin D as well. There are certain foods, wild foods, that are very high in vitamin D as well. And others, like piglets and stuff like that, they tend to have high vitamin D. Lard has. And certain other types of animals. So pretty much what happened was people hunted those and got their vitamin D. There were certain fish that also had, river fish and stuff like coastal fish tend to have high amounts of vitamin D as well. So a lot of these sort of things will supplement. And they're always outdoors, so they're still getting some in the winter. They were never, they got very high, good levels in the summer. And so the food sort of supplemented, and so they never fell into deficiency levels at all. Because even when we look at the Inuit, we never see deficiency if they're tribally eating. So if they're out and they're eating their tribal food, animal-based foods, animals tend to store vitamin D in their fat cells, okay, like we do. So when we eat animal foods and especially animal fat that's actually, like the skin that gets, like piglets and their seals, because the Inuit use a lot of seal blubber, and seals have a lot of vitamin D in them, even more than the whales. So you've probably seen those awful Inuit clubbing those seals. Well, they get pretty much a lot of their fat from the seals, and that seal fat is high in vitamin D. So they have always had very good levels from their food supply and stuff like that. Also, a number of fish in the colder climates tend to be higher in vitamin D as well. So when you eat an ancestral diet, you usually don't have those sort of problems. It's a modern day thing now, this sort of seasonality where we see big, massive decreases because, one, we don't supplement, and two, we don't eat the foods, species-appropriate foods, that tend to be higher in fat-soluble vitamins. And that's the reason, So and also we don't stay outdoors taking up, because remember, if you're outdoors long enough, you'll take up 20,000 IUs. Now you're taking up double. Where's the rest going? Into your fat cells. In winter, you'd be losing fat, wouldn't you? Because you're not engaging the Randall cycle. You would basically be upregulating hormone-sensitive lipase. And when you upregulate hormone-sensitive lipase and release fats from the adipose tissue in winter as a tribal person, what else are you releasing? Fat-soluble vitamins. Got it? That's why. We, on the other hand, now eat kibble diets. We engage the Randall cycle. We don't engage hormone-sensitive lipase. We store fat-soluble vitamins. We don't release them in winter, in the season when we need them. Got it? That's the difference. So we are no longer in sync with our ancestral lifestyle. That means releasing fats from the adipose tissue, giving our body, and that's why I usually say to people, if you're losing rapidly weight, do not fucking supplement vitamin D, because you're releasing a lot of fat-soluble vitamins. If you're rapidly losing weight because you've done like a lean diet, you've said, "Oh, I'm going to go lean meats, and I'm going to cut back, the fats and all that, and I'm going to lean out." Fine. Don't supplement fat-soluble vitamins because you'll be fucking releasing shitloads from your adipose tissue. You don't need to supplement. Got it? That's how our ancestors got their fat-soluble vitamins in winter. They released them through hormone-sensitive lipase being activated. Simple. Think seasonally what happens to hormonal changes. It's a brilliant system, the body, when it's adapted to its own to its ancestral environment properly. It works brilliantly. And see how well I improvise? Some of that stuff I just worked out myself just a moment ago. So, yes, lateral thinking it's called. See you, moo. Mouse. Yep. What hormones are you thinking about, Bjorn, in regards to collagen, please? All hormones play a role, even insulin plays a role in bone and muscle. But they act as signaling. Yes, 99. Yes, I've heard claims that telomeres have been lengthened by maybe half using some virus as a vector. Yeah, it's part of that longevity sort of thing that people are talking about. Currently, I wouldn't touch the technology. I think we don't understand enough about some of the longevity pathways, and we have to be very, very bloody careful. But as I said, that technology could potentially be used in the future for some of that stuff, life extension. But I think at this stage, we still don't know enough to be, let's say, meddling around and doing experimentations of that sort. We'll keep it to the animals for the time being until we work out what actually works and what doesn't work and stuff like that. So I think it's still a far way out for a couple of decades, maybe even longer. So hard to see. I've always put a little vinegar in my bone broth. Me too. It's like I do like a bit, and I do like, all those ones. Good sleep actually helps with those, and animal foods help with those as well in that regard. Yes. And the insulin one as well. Anyway, I think we've covered that. Hey, Harry, besides the glyphosate, how exactly do oats and wheat damage the intestines? It's usually from the lectins. It's pretty much the lectins that cause a lot of their problems. So now, if you prepare them in a traditional way by soaking them and stuff like that, you can reduce the amount of anti-nutrients in them. Also, if you use sort of relatively recent ancestral type methods or varieties like the Zea bread, which has got very little, practically nearly no, well, it's still got a bit of gluten, but practically no gluten to really talk about. And it's very low in some of the other lectins. It's double the protein of regular bread. That's why it actually becomes quite stiff and solidifies. That's the bread that my father was brought up on in the village. So he would have a slice of that with a big slab of cheese in the morning. That was his breakfast. That was the only bread that he got for the day, because wheat had to come from the lowlands and it was expensive. And so it was a treat in that regard. So in these mountainous areas. And also, it was built in soils which are rich in minerals and all sorts of things. And they used to basically ferment it over a couple of days. It wasn't, so you'd ferment it for a couple of days and then you would cook it. And then you would use that bread for the whole week, small amount of slices to basically, and you'd add a lot of animal foods on it, so. And even here in Australia, I mean, one of the, my brother's stepfather, he came from a Central Highlands of Tasmania, a sort of a very rural area, and they grew up on the same thing, putting putting big slabs of lard on the bread, and that was all the old traditional type heirloom type breads. So very different compared to today's stuff. And it was prepared differently, which reduced the amount of anti-nutrients. But again, these are fillers. These are foods that are not species appropriate. They're foods basically as they were used as, foods to supplement in a sense, because there wasn't enough animal foods in many cases amongst poor people, so they sort of supplemented. But it's another reason where when you look back in history, you notice a different height difference between the people that worked the land and the elites and all that. They were much taller. And that wasn't accidental, because they were eating high quality animal foods and living longer as well. They only went to hell in a handbasket when after Christopher Columbus has gone to the Americas and brought back a number of the sugar cane, and brought a number of these other things. That's when they brought these refined things back. That's when their health went to shit. I mean, it was Queen Victoria then. She actually lost all her teeth and rotted from the sugar. So, because, they just weren't adapted to those foods and these people. And that's when some of these we saw, like Henry the Eighth, I think it was, who was quite fat and had basically, because he loved sugar. It was a new treat. It was very expensive. It was worth more than gold in the early days, and he consumed shitloads of that fructose, and ended up with being obese and having gout. The first type of symptoms of gout were recorded in regards by one of his physicians. So yeah. But I wouldn't touch lectins. Lectin-rich foods, AG. I just wouldn't touch them. You don't need them. They basically damage and break down those tight junctions that vitamin D tries to pull together. And over time, if you have too much, you end up with leaky gut. And glyphosate doesn't help with mucking up, because a lot of these foods are just full of glyphosate nowadays. And that is like an antibiotic poison being thrown in there every single fucking day by most people, and they wonder why they've got so many pathogenic bacteria and a gut microbiome that's in a mess. Yes. So just started to look into and arrived at prion-like protein misfolding, dehydrating cells and having an effect on collagen. Not sure the mechanism or truth about it, but diving in. Good. Yeah, look, there is misfolding that can actually happen, but there can be some viruses interactions. There can also be an interaction with certain parts of the sort of things that we consume that can actually be affected, and certain derangements that can actually take place. Normally, if you've got a healthy gut microbiome and you're eating species appropriate, you should not get these sort of misfolds. You actually end up getting more misfolds because of glycating factors, which is the big one. And dehydrating cells is due to sugar as well. It's the deuterium thing that I've talked about, how sugar dehydrates and fat hydrates. You get more metabolic water, 10% more than you put in terms of fat. 1 gram gives you 1.1 mils, where with, I know for those who are metrically challenged, can't help you, go and learn it. And then for the people who basically eating kibble, it's about 0.44. So it's like 56% less. That gets flushed out, because basically it's to get rid of the deuterium. So yeah, which is that high, and that's a problem. that dehydrating effect, and that has an effect on, also the protein folding plus the glycating factors that are causing that as well. So carbohydrates is just basically cause a lot of this problem. The beta amyloid, that's that misfolding and the actual derangement where it becomes it becomes like stringy like and all that. That as well is happening due to too much advanced glycation end products. So a lot of these things can be brought back to the crap that we consume and how it affects proteins in the body. So all proteins are affected by excessive sugar. So, and dehydration is increased by sugar as well. Fat, hydrates. So it's really important to get that shit out of your diet as much as possible. I know, even I cheat. I'm guilty as charged, but the reality is we need to try and keep it at a bare minimum because it's not good for our bodies. Yep. But as I said, I can't see the point. I think it was who, with AG asking, AG, I can't see the point when it comes to, eating plants, unless you're cheating occasionally, yeah, but I can't see the damn point of eating that stuff. What about whey? Would that be more available and useful, increasing protein intake if you just can't find a way to pack in so much meat and eggs as one would like? If you're going to take whey, take it in the first 90 minutes. Do not take it after, because your muscle protein synthesis sensitivity after exercise, those first 90 minutes, you will get the best effect from whey. And then you follow that up with a good hearty meal of steak and eggs. But yes, if you're going to get that whey in, get it earlier, within the first 90 minutes. I usually say first 60 minutes. So basically, if you've finished exercising, it'll probably take a half an hour probably to get home, then have your whey thing. So within that, from half an hour to an hour, get it in. You'll get the best results in that regard. But again, I do not encourage people to use supplements or these sort of things. I encourage people to use real food, because even whey powders, they've been processed and all that, and they do tend to change the hydrogen isotopes and tend to be higher in deuterium. So it's not something I encourage in that regard. So yes, llama, eat your meat. Harry, why do you think people get hypercholesterolemia? Thank you. Simple. Most people do have a genetic predisposition. Others, because they are deranged. That means they're engaging the Randall cycle and they can push triglycerides and certain types of lipids very high. But that's because of derangement. Now, those people that basically see all the actual lipids normalizing, because even people that have got the so-called hypercholesterolemia that tend to be high, there tend to be those responders and that tend to raise. It's due because primarily people that have got the ApoE 44, 43, 42 gene type. So it's basically people that take in chylomicrons much faster, and you tend to cause a derangement in the liver in that regards. So those people tend, and the liver starts pumping out as much possible VLDL and LDL, getting it out of the system as fast as possible. And that puts far more into the bloodstream. And so when you actually do a test, you actually end up with higher amounts. Also, some of these people tend to run a much higher LDLC. It's just the way they are because they basically get the chylomicrons in much quicker. And when they actually consume more saturated fat, they will push through the liver far more VLDL than somebody else, an LDL. So it all has to do, because at the end of the day, these people are looking at the LDL fractions and going, oh, this is elevated. But they're not looking at the remnant chylomicrons that are still in the system if you've got a different type of genetics. So, where is that energy or the cholesterol? Where is it located? Is it in the LDL or is it in the actual? It depends on your genetics. So this is where the genetics make the difference. So a lot of these people tend to be hyper responders, and it's not really a problem at all. It's just a different trafficking of energy. And if you're on, they also are less tolerant to consuming sugar because they've got the more ancestral genes. So they should basically stick to a low carb diet and they will not get these derangements. These derangements are due to them being more susceptible to the Randall cycle and sort of insulin resistance and stuff like that compared to other people. So, and if you take a look at their genetics, they usually have the ApoE4 of one sort, either homozygous, both, or heterozygous. So either way, they tend to be more vulnerable because of the uptake into the liver more rapidly, because of where people with the other types tend to take up chylomicron remnants much slower. So they export less VLDL and they show up in their bloodstream less LDL. And people think, oh, that looks good, like mine. Mine, looks fantastic. But I still got heart disease because I still basically had damaged that I caused from the highly oxidized crap that I was putting into my body, full of aldehydes and primary and secondary oxidative products from the seed oils. But my cholesterol looked fantastic. And all my other markers looked, as a doctor cardiologist said, you're a 5% anomaly, Mr. Serpanos. I said, yeah, that really helps me, doesn't it? So, no, there are plenty of people with ApoE44 genes that tend to have this condition, and there are plenty of them who are tribal people, and then plenty of other people who are centenarians that have high cholesterol, very high cholesterol, and are still living longer than others. So it's a non-issue. It's a question of, are you deranging your endocrine system? Are you glycating things? Are you basically oxidizing things in your bloodstream? It depends on what you're doing and what crap you're putting in there. This is a makeup. This has to, as I said, your ApoE depends on how you traffic different lipids. That means how you're moving energy around through these boats. And it all comes down to the type of genetics you have. And that's the difference. But it doesn't really matter whether you've got more of one boat or another boat. The question is, are they damaged? Are the boats damaged? And are the stuff inside highly oxidized and damaged? If they're not, it's not an issue. Yes, because even when you look at people with hypercholesterolemia, you basically do not see it's a U curve. So it's not like a straight line or, it's a U curve, which basically means you've got people with really high and very low, and it makes no difference. So whether people have very high or very low, they can find themselves either sick or not sick. Let the genetics do. If somebody's got an ApoE of 2.2, they hardly take any chylomicron remnants. It really slows down. Where the others with a 4.4, it circulates around the chylomicron within 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, it's sort of rushing in to the liver. Got it? But if you've got this slow, the body can actually adjust all the others, the sugar, the glycogen, and all that, and it doesn't have this high influx of energy as fast as somebody with an ApoE44 or 4 something. And that's the difference. And that's then they're not exporting, and that's why people with the alleles of 2-2 have even lower levels. And it's considered, if you've got that, you're really protected. No, it's just basically a different transport system. At the end of the day, you're not protected. I wasn't protected. Cholesterol's not the issue, how high it is or low it is. How many boats are circulating. It's how many of those fucking boats are damaged with the inappropriate shit, seed oils and everything else that is in there that's damaging those boats. That's the problem. The glycation and the oxidation, not the amount of boats circulating and the configuration and types. That's due to genetics. Anyway, I've been experimenting with drinking raw eggs. I'm up to 12 a day, ramping it up slowly, so easy and delicious. Okay, it's another way of doing it. G'day, Zombie. I did say hello to you earlier, but I'll say it again. In 30 says Carnivore. No dairy at the moment, but I've lost 4 kilograms and don't need to lose any weight. Any suggestions for putting on more weight on a carnivore without dairy? Thank you. Eat more fat. Eat more fat and more protein, and you will spare tissue. Actually, I would actually go more fat than protein, because you basically you don't want to, because the more muscle you build, the more energy you need to basically maintain that muscle. So, so if you're building more muscle with more protein, you will lean out even more. And, so that regard, you'll lose fat stores even more. So if you're low on fat stores, you probably need to consume a bit more fat. Buy some lard, buy some pork belly. Yes, very nice. Cook it up and eat a very beautiful, tasty pork belly. That will keep you well. I still wonder if there is something to the consuming fertilized eggs or regular eggs. Fertilized eggs are supposed to be more anabolic, containing small amounts of hormones. Yeah, but the hormones are not the same. It's like the meat. Sorry, it's like the dairy. The hormones don't use the same receptors as ours, so they're irrelevant. So they're not going to do anything for you in that regard. And if it's a fertilized egg, in a sense, it's more akin to meat in a sense and less akin to egg, because some of the material to create that fertilization has already been used up. And actually then the protein utilization actually goes down closer to that of an animal food. So no, actually a regular egg, unfertilized, will give you far more high quality utilizable protein compared to a fertilized egg. And the hormones are pretty much irrelevant because we don't have the same receptors. Thank God for that, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to drink milk. I'd end up as big as a bull. Well, just stay with me for a moment. Dr. Joseph Antonio reports that many of the subjects of the study with 4.5 kilograms of protein were all day complaining about drinking liters, peeing a lot, and being hot like a furnace. Well, look, I'll give you this thing. The Samburu people can consume. I'd have to see the study. If you got a link to it, put it in the description notes. But I suspect there are carbs in it, and carbs have a dehydrating effect. The Samburu people were consuming about 3.92 on average grams of kilogram of body weight, and the rats also were consuming even far more. They weren't either peeing or anything like that. It's usually when you pee, it's usually that you've got, see, if you're activating hormone-sensitive lipase because you're low in a ketotic state, in a insulin to glucagon of 1.3, you will not pee like a trooper. Peeing is when you're actually using because remember the deuterium content of meat is much higher. So if you convert protein because you can't access fat because you've got too much insulin in the body due to carbohydrates, and you can't access fat because hormone sensitive lipase is not activated if insulin is higher, it means that if you're eating a very high protein diet and you're not getting enough energy, you will break down that protein and turn it into, and because both sugar and protein are much higher in deuterium, you will dehydrate and you will basically produce more water to be dumped out, because that is how, through urination, the body can deplete deuterium. So that's probably what's happening, and you get this sort of more thermic effect because you're really working up, the system is really working very hard in that regard. So no, these people, like the sand people in the Kalahari, are actually in a desert environment, but they are consuming shitloads of fat, and also they're consuming deuterium depleted water. That means from leaves, they get the ostrich eggs and the leaf stuff, because most tap water is very high in deuterium, like sugar, 155 parts per million at sea level. So they basically consume this water from leaves, which is much lower, around the 100 odd, and they squeeze that into an ostrich and they drink that, which is deuterium depleted water, plus the fat that they're getting, and that makes the difference, and that's why they're not peeing like mad continuously. Usually people that are actually consuming too much sugar tend to pee more, and who have got raised insulin. So it's different when you basically first keto adapt and you dump water, that water weight. That's a momentary water weight. Once that goes, then the body finds a new homeostasis because you've got lower insulin, you're not retaining water. That's a different thing. But I'd have to look at the study design characteristics before I could comment accurately, but I suspect it's along those lines. And I know when people are basically insulin insensitive, they've got insulin resistance of some sort, and they can't access fat, they tend to basically not have a lot of energy. They feel very hungry, and they tend to run much higher blood glucose levels, which basically they tend to convert more of their protein into sugar. Because they can't access. It's no different than basically the vegans who are eating. The difference between the vegan is they're eating a lot of carbs, so they keep insulin up. And so what happens is, because they're not eating enough carbs, enough energy, the body then catabolizes its protein. So again, they're running higher blood sugars. They're in a different state. And I suspect, I haven't seen the design, but I suspect it's probably along those lines. I've seen stuff that are similar, so I wouldn't be surprised at all. What does David say? Just has been a guest in a lot of podcasts and has conducted most of the well-known protein overfeeding studies and high protein clinical trials. Yeah, I'd have to look at it and see exactly how they actually design those studies, because that's important. If you know exactly what the composition was, please put it in, exactly the food composition. But if you've got a link to the study, please put it in there so I can actually look at it, because I can't look at it or know what it is. I can't read your mind, David. What would vinegar be impeding in terms of absorption? It's also a lactase. The first gives the stomach acid digestive weaker with age. So is vinegar a way to compensate? Salt. Salt, my dear llama. Get yourself a salt block and start licking. You need, for those proton pumps, you need not vinegar, you need chloride. Remember, sodium chloride is what salt is made of. G'day, Kate. It's good to see you here. When I up my protein to about 40 to 45% of calories, I find I get hot quite easy. Women, you should know best. You're a hot woman then. Is that what you're telling me, Kate? You stepped into that one. Yes, the thermic effect is real, but let's not. I think some people are slightly over-exaggerating the thermic effect. Yes, you need to get away from those flip-flops. All about toes and hiking. Wacky Toast has got his own suggestions about that. Flip-flops and stuff like that, footwear. Don't know enough to talk about footwear, so I'll give that a miss. Do you think Salad Boy's problem was copper due to eating an unancestral amount of liver? Hard to say. I am not going to comment about people because he did a lot of things. He ate excessive amounts of liver compared to other people. He also ate excessive amounts of other things like honey and all sorts of things. So I don't know what could have caused. I know populations like the Greeks that do consume slightly more organ meats compared to many other populations. So, and their bodies seems to handle that. There's probably genetics there. So I'm not going to comment about Salad Boy because I do not know enough about his diet. You know, it's not as if I'm living with a person and knowing exactly what the person's eating. People tell you things, but, you know, it's a bit like, you know, the epidemiological studies, food frequency questionnaires. People are asked to fill out those. They're inaccurate. Unless somebody's taking down every single quantity of food with a food diary, counting, measuring, and weighing every single thing, and as a detailed, I could not know for the life of me exactly what composition. You know, he may be even supplementing zinc occasionally. And so it's not an issue. And there could be other things. I don't know what his problems are and the reasons and all this sort of stuff. I'm not his. I don't have enough intel, so to speak, to really know exactly. But there are different populations that can manage different. Remember, there's a lot of people that eat a lot of crustaceans as well, different coastal societies, and they tend to be very high in a lot of the minerals. And you know, and they tend to be even close to the 1-to-1 with copper and zinc. Got it? Where muscle meat is a much, and you need the sort of, most people sort of a 1-to-8, but at the same time, the body, as I said, if it's not deranged and working properly, those metalloproteins, the receptors that take in, the body can regulate the sort of minerals it takes in. So it technically shouldn't be really a big problem. I think there are other sort of derangements due to things like throwing in there a whole lot of sugar, you know, 100 grams of honey and all these other things, and they can cause derangements in the way systems work. So that's more plausible than basically the liver part. But I don't know enough to comment. Dylan, you know, it's really hard to know. these sort of details about people. I mean, I consume liver, but I don't consume shitloads of it. I consume small amounts. And I basically consume a lot of muscle meats, but I do vary with the different types of muscle meats. I don't have just beef. I have pork, more pork than anything else. I have basically, some eggs. I have some dairy proteins. I have, I always, every day I'm having a bit of some form of dairy. So I'm getting good levels of calcium there as well. I'm having, a couple of eggs occasionally. When I'm sick and tired of eggs, I usually just take my choline supplement because I have to, because I can't do it from methionine. It's just I don't have the genetics. I'm one of that small little group, a couple of percentage points of people that have, all these little genetic years, because we used to get shitloads, because my ancestors used to consume shitloads of liver and things like that. So they used to get quite a bit of choline, and so they didn't need to convert it from methionine. So that's an issue. Most people do. I don't. So I have to get choline directly. So there's those little subtle things. I don't know enough about him to basically really comment and I don't like commenting about other people when I don't know enough about them. But when they actually promote things like 100 grams of, honey, I'm going to criticize them. I'm going to say, well, that's going to engage the Randall cycle. That's going to basically glycate the living daylights out of you, because it's 7 times. Now some people are saying even 8 times or more, 10 times glycating compared to glucose. So why would you eat that stuff and cause those derangements? So, that's where my criticism is on sound ground, is where I criticize these people. Not really, because I don't really know their absolute diet. And, some people eat in very strange ways. They talk about things in a certain way, but then at home on their own, they eat in a very strange way. And I don't know enough to basically say much about it. I don't really give a fuck anyway. Yes, toes and socks and all that. So there's more about that. Yes. God, you guys are really into legs, feet and all that. Feet massages as well. Yes. Heard a yawn, Mr. H. Oh, yes, exactly. Time for it to come out and play. No, you don't want him to play. He's a devious, yes, fellow. Entertaining, but yes. Do people with ApoE22 usually have higher or lower LDL? Thank you. Lower. Generally speaking, lower. Because they do not take in remnant chylomicron as fast as those with ApoE44. But a 4.2 will take faster than a 3.3, which is what I am. So what I am is somewhere in between. Yes, G. Good to see you. Yes. More of a slut than a bitch. Anyway, can't chat driving. Yes, keep your eye on the road. We don't want you running off the road. Anyway, ingrown toenails tangible to nutrition? I don't know. I know that basically look, there is a requirement of having a certain level, because the keratin, the binding keratin, you do need a certain level of sulfur. So sulfur amino acids play a role. Now, you can get the nail being, not forming properly due to poor nutrition, not getting enough sulfur amino acids like methionine, which is in meat, and many others like taurine and stuff like that. So theoretically, possibly, yeah, it could be, maybe, our ancestors. I've never asked, actually. It's one thing I should at some point ask Mary, next time I've got her on the blower, actually ask her, does she see ingrown toenails and stuff like that amongst tribal people? I suspect she'll say no. And if that's the case, yeah, it probably is a deficiency, a nutritional deficiency that probably causes some of these, and maybe, a collagen degrading enzyme, MMP, dysregulation, not enough fat soluble vitamins. I'm speculating now, pure speculation here, but I suspect those are the things that actually control the collagen sort of, and, your nails are basically, hardened collagen protein, and that the modeling of that would be affected by nutrients, stuff like that. So I'd suspect it's plausible, Dylan. It's plausible. I wouldn't be surprised. I've actually noticed even, my nails are, way, way better and healthier than what they used to be when, you press on them and it goes red, from back again, so you don't get that like white stuff that I used to get, or the very rough on top and all that. Again, nutrients do play a role in that sort of stuff. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Like everything in the body, the nutrients play a role. So, but exactly how it all works, what sort of nutrients you need to make sure that the nail grows properly. Obviously things like biotin are important. Things like, the proteins, getting enough proteins, getting enough of the fat soluble vitamins and all that. But are there other elements potentially? But you probably get them in the food itself. Yeah, it's an interesting one, but yeah, you got a bit of speculation off me out of that one, but I haven't really looked into it. Now you've made me curious in that way. Lately, I've talked about copping a person online removed thin lining inside the copper pot to have plain copper, and perhaps have claimed using copper cups, pots will get people copper poisoning. I know the Arabs used to, and still have, copper-based cups, and they used to basically use them to put water in there, and that water was basically sterilized, because it does actually do that. So, and even vessels, like copper vessels in the past, people used to use to put water to basically decontaminate the water. So it's been used in a number of ways, but none of these people suffered copper poisoning. I tend to believe that these derangements more happen because we're not on an ancestral diet. We're not eating animal foods appropriate and all these sort of things. I think the more we move away from ancestral sort of roots and eat too much refined shit and all that, we derange our system so much that a lot of these things don't work properly. And then again, it's really hard to measure these sort of toxicity and stuff like that. And I'm still not convinced about a lot of this sort of stuff, Neff. I think if you eat a species-appropriate diet like our ancestors have done, a lot of these tribal populations do, technically you shouldn't get into trouble. But a lot of modern people do a lot of strange things. Those are hard ones. Those are really hard ones because we don't really have definitive studies. You've got animal stuff, but that's not good enough because some of our metalloproteins in our intestinal tract operate slightly differently. We uptake and do things slightly different than other animals. So there are some differences there as well. Our requirements are slightly different. And so you can't really extrapolate from animal models to humans. And we don't really have any long-term studies where we've done on humans because you would never pass an ethics committee. So these are sort of you could say, anecdotal type evidence. And then maybe some of these people are basically eating a lot of plants, which are very high in copper, then using these copper type things, not really eating a lot of foods to balance out, to get enough. And it's probably the thing that's probably caused some of these problems, so usually I find that most people that end up with some level of copper issue, they tend to be plant-based people. Historically, that's what I've noticed. Yes, it definitely does. And they've been probably on that for some time. But I doubt that they are, they've got some massive. And the other thing is the inside of the copper pipes, you actually get a coating and it seals. And so it prevents any excess metals coming through anyway. So that's the other thing that happens. Yes. Thanks, Kate. I always forget these things. Yes, please hit those dong, dong, dong. Those like ones. Yes, definitely. Anyone's tried testicles? Yes. They're an acquired taste, Bjorn. You're an adventurous young man, aren't you? I've eaten brains and I've eaten basically the ears off pigs and the tongues and number of other things, but I have to say I've never had testicles. So my father has, but I've never had. Yeah, maybe one of these days I should grab myself a couple of balls. What are okay veggies to eat with ground beef, excluding green red peppers? Mate, you got to get your head out of this sort of garbage food. Look, as I said, if you're gonna get any, you need low oxalate foods and veggies that are not going to be very harmful to you. So you're probably looking at things like zucchini. You're probably looking at things like the less sweet pumpkin. I'm fine with mushrooms, and mushrooms are in between because they're actually not even a plant; they're a fungus. So mushrooms are occasionally have a mushroom sauce and all that. So their cell walls are more like animals rather than plants, even though they behave like plants the way they actually draw nutrients from the ground. But so yes, but they're a fungus basically. They grow in humans and they grow on plants. They're opportunists, but they also, break down things, which is pretty good. Fungus breaks down things and allows the nutrients to become available to other life. Very important for the cycle of life. Otherwise, our planet would be full of dead things, and fungus actually breaks it all down, which is great. Yeah, there's not many that I sort of approve of. Now, I'll probably have to do something at some stage going through all the different vegetables and all the different stuff in terms of all the anti-nutrients and all the stuff and sort of classify them in some way. At some point, I'm going to do something like that for the low-carb people that do come to this channel. And provide a bit of information. But generally speaking, I agree, Zombie. Why would you want to ruin round beef with veggies exactly? I agree. Completely agree. The only thing that I'd have ground beef with is eggs, you know, pretty much. I mean, sometimes I don't mind a bit of onion in it, but again, onion, if you put too much, it does have a bit of sugar in it. So it's not the best thing, but a small amount is not going to kill you, to give it a bit of taste. So I use some herbs and spices and stuff like that, and that's pretty much it. But generally speaking, as Zombie says, we don't really need that sort of stuff. It's not species appropriate, and in large amounts, it can be slightly deleterious to us in the long run. If you add veggies, sugar, you have advanced glycation in products creation, and yes, Randall cycle, that should be a C. Activation, yes, exactly. There are very few plants, because otherwise, if you really want low carb plants, you have to shift to the high oxalate green veggies, and I don't classify those as food. I classify them as things that were used medicinally by wise men at the time, but I don't classify them as medicinal. As food. I think they're very high in oxalate and they're really bad, and the other stuff is pretty much has quite a bit of sugar in it. Yeah, it's a hard. It's you're right, Neff. There's no real place for those. Look, I know we all, yes, more for the taste. Yes, exactly. And as I said, if I was going to use anything in ground beef for the taste, I will get small amount, just a couple of grams, small amount of onion, and I would basically then grate it so it becomes into a fluid, a really nice little paste type thing. And I'd throw that in that and mix it up with eggs and all that, and I'd cook that and give it some flavour with some pepper and salt. That's what I would do for flavour rather than putting a whole amount in. So if you want the flavour, that's the way to go. Yes, yes. We're all thinking that. Yeah, it's simple as that. There's so many spices out there, and we don't need to use a lot, and they actually are much more flavoursome. They actually make meats much more flavoursome than actually a lot of the plants. A lot of plants are bland, really, if you think about it. It's the spices that really spice things up. It's not I mean, even you know, if you take the tubers and all these foods, you take a potato and just cook it on its own and try and eat it. It's so bland and tasteless. It's shit. When you throw in a bit of butter, throw a bit of salt and pepper and a bit of oregano in there, it changes it completely. And the same thing, rather than having the potato, you could throw the same sort of herbal combination on animal foods, and they will taste just as nice. Just a little bit, damn it. We're not criticizing you. We're just saying what is species appropriate and all that. What you do with your body, mate, is your business. Like everybody else, uh, Barbados, you are your own boss. You decide what goes into your body, not me or anyone else. So we're just talking in general now. So don't take offense. But when I have my pork, I have to say, I've got to put lemon on pork, you know. And when it comes to beef, I like putting a bit of butter on. I don't like lemon on beef. I like to put a bit of butter. But pork, it's just got a different taste and it really combines well with lemon juice. So, we've all got our little preferences and there's nothing wrong with that to give flavour, to make foods interesting. I don't put a lot of lemon juice because because I'm getting enough, in terms of vitamin C. I don't need more. More, if the body doesn't need to use it, it turns it into oxalate, so it's not a good idea. And I also have genetics which tend to turn more of these things into oxalates, so I'm doubly fucked. So I have to be careful not to go too hard on these things. So yes, I'm one of those people that if I take high dose of take quite a bit of vitamin C, I will turn a lot of into oxalates. So there are people with those genetics. So yes, and we don't really need it because when we've got good glutathione status, we recycle it to small amounts. So same goes for vitamin E as well in that regard. No, you don't have to delete. Don't listen to these fucking bullies. Carny fucking bullies. And none of them are perfect either. Neither am I. Exactly. That's the other thing. You can delete as much as you like. It still comes up in Restream or StreamYard, and I can still pop it on. So makes it's irrelevant. Thanks, Nev. Thanks for the laugh. Exactly. Exactly. Precisely. I always need something to talk about and discuss. Yep. I have never liked the taste of beef, eggs, and dairy is the best. Eggs and dairy is the best. Even hot water was better taste to me than beef. I'm not I don't mind beef, but I'm not a big fan. I would rather have, like, if somebody put a slab, like a big pork belly in front of me, or a couple of chops of pork, and there was beef right next to it, I'd go for the pork. And I would also go for I prefer lamb over beef. Lamb is much more tasty. It's got nicer flavour. I love lamb, actually. I can't. I actually like pork as well, but I can't really decide which one I like more, lamb or pork. I like lamb and pork for different reasons, but I can't make up my mind on that one. I think I'll never make up my mind. I tend to vacillate between either lamb or pork. I love both. So occasionally I have beef, but I'm not a big beef person. It's never been. I know in the carnivore community, it's sacrilege to say you don't like pork. Sorry, beef. Fuck them, is what I say. I would have, pork and lamb anytime over beef or anything else. So they're my favourite foods, actually. Eggs, yeah, for me, eggs are like beef. Even though I need the choline, eggs are a bit like beef for me, So I'd rather occasionally have liver and get my choline that way rather than eating too many eggs. I eat them, but I sometimes get sick and tired of them. But I can never get sick and tired of basically eating pork, and never with lamb. I could just, I could sit there. I actually sat once down at my brother Sean's place, and he had barbecued a whole lot of lamb, and I just sat there just most of it was mine. I actually took it there to the barbecue thing, but I just sat there and basically, he said, "Are you still hungry?" He turned around and said, "Aren't you satisfied? You realise how many lamb chops you've already had?" And I'd already had something like 8 lamb chops. I'd probably up to slightly over, 800 grams. I was nearly a kilo, which is about 2.2 pounds, or I was slightly probably about 1.9 pounds or whatever. So I'd really pigged out, and there was still some pork to come. That was one of my really pig out days. So yeah, hide the lamb. It's Harry's coming, or hide the pork. Yes. Well, if there's beef out there, I'll have some, but I won't go to town, so to speak. It's probably why I'm so defensive about pork and lamb. Yes, yes, that is a problem. If you're a sugar, you end up engaging in the Randall cycle, and it's not very healthy. Um, yes, you got to find a way to get off that addiction, that merry-go-round. It's not a good thing. For me, I had to have, you know, my chest ripped open to realize and come to my senses on some of those things. So I hope you don't have to have a similar experience, mate, to come to your senses that, it's just not species appropriate. And in the long run, it ages you faster and harms you. So Joe Rogan did a 20-minute nearly ice bath at 0 at half, 1 Fahrenheit, half a cell. Is there anything to that? Seems extreme. Well, it actually does increase some stem cell activation. It's got a hormetic effect, but it does tend to basically have some positive effects on the body. So, basically, I used to do it. I sometimes still do it, but occasionally where I'll be under the shower like with hot, and then I'll turn the cold on. And I mean, I turn the heat on, and it's just the cold. And I can tell you, you're shivering for a while. And then you sort of get used to the cold. It's like those people that they go into a sauna and then just jump, and that puts a lot of stress on the body. But that actually really upregulates, it pushes up glutathione, pushes up a whole lot of repair mechanisms, plus tends to activate, some stem cell things. So it has some positive effects, but if you do it too often, you actually lose. It seems the body gets too used to it, and you lose any of that. So it's this change in temperature. I tend to, when in winter, when I'm walking, I'll get out of a warm office and I'll still have my sleeves rolled up, and I feel the cold. And that cold has this hermetic effect. And so, uh, even though Ling says you don't feel any cold, and she's probably bloody right to some extent, but that's because I've adapted much better. So it's probably I'm getting less of a benefit compared to the past. But it does have some hermetic benefits. But at the same time, I mean, I've never tried an bath. I've just basically gone from hot to cold water. That's it. For a couple of minutes. But I've never sort of just gone from a sauna like some people do and then jump into an ice bath. So I've never tried that. That would be an interesting experience, because in a sauna it's even higher the temperature than you would normally get in the shower, because it's diffused. You're not locked into it. So yeah, I wouldn't know. I don't know how I'd feel if I did that. Yeah, yes, exactly. Ah, yes, it does. It does. It definitely does make you stronger. What doesn't kill you. But I've never tried beyond. I've never tried the sauna and like an ice bath. So I've tried the shower, like turning on the, much hotter, where you feel, oh, this is a bit warm, and you're sort of trying to adjust yourself to make sure you can get used to the extra heat, and then you turn that off, and you turn slightly higher the cold water under the shower, and you go, oh, and it's like a absolute fucking shock to the system. Yes. So that really it really excites let's put it that way. I used to do it more often. I don't do it much now. I just I'm going, I do some other things for hermetic stresses. I go, yeah, I get enough hormetic stresses from all the other things that happen around me in life, EMFs and everything else, all hermetic stresses. So yes, I'm probably getting enough. Yes, and very much so. Yes, and might tell you bad acne and trying to pin down the foods causing them. It's usually sugar, basically. Um, So they must be getting it from somewhere. Yeah. So, and even fruit does have, but I mean, if they're only having a bit of a couple of berries and all that, that wouldn't cause it. So they must be getting from their friends. They must be getting other stuff. So it's a hormonal thing, obviously. But look, I look at ancestral people who are eating ancestral no sugar. They don't have this. Acne is unknown. You look at people with eating excessive amount of sugar. There is another possibility is seed oils as well, because the thing that causes all these skin things, and they're slightly different depending on the genetics of the person, all that, tend to be a derangement of matrix metalloproteinases. So I'm surprised your kids are not getting enough sort of fat soluble vitamins to regulate those collagen degrading enzymes. But maybe they're getting too much of the other shit that's sort of affecting their skin, and they're getting some of that sort of stuff, because really you can't get skin conditions without MMPs. They are, you look every single study, acne or whatever, MMP 9, I think at 2, what's the other one? I can't remember the other one. So all these matrix metalloproteinases, which are fat soluble vitamin regulated, are at play. So it's not sugar or seed oils. My kids do not have excessive hormones. Okay. Don't know. That's a strange one. They're not sneaking something behind your back. Kids are the first ones, the little bastards, to basically lie. Weren't you a little bastard like I was? I lied all the time to my parents about things to get away with them. Yes. Yeah, see you, Kate. G'day, Sarah. One leaves, one turns up. Yes, exactly. And Russian Goose. Hi, Harry. Looking great as always. Thanks, mate. Do you have any thoughts on postprandial sort of Somalians food comas? Is it something more or less natural? Are you talking about, like, are you eating sugars, a lot of sugars, mate, or stuff like that? Or what are you doing? What foods are you eating in that regard? So depends on what foods you're sort of consuming. Because it sort of sounds like it tends to sound like most people that I know that have these issues, they're either highly insulin resistant, or they're eating excessive amount of sugar, and their hormones are just all over the place. They're in a sort of a deranged. It's not. These are not natural. You should not be. Sometimes, like, an easy, fast way to sort of balance all this sort of stuff out is to basically do a 3-day fast that usually resensitizes you. So if you've done any stuff that sort of has thrown your sleep, your food cravings, this, sleepiness in the middle of the day, and all this sort of stuff, these sort of derangements, they tend to be these sort of, your glucose is going up and down, your blood sugars, your insulin is going up and down. And so things are not really operating properly in that regard. So you've got some derangements. I don't know what your diet's like. So you really need to take out a lot of the sugars and try and actually normalize things. Are you consuming sugars? And how much in that regard? So let me go to the bottom of my. G'day, Jared. Good to see you, mate. Yeah, just tell me what your diet is. I'm a Russian Goose, so I've got an idea, but I suspect there's quite a bit of carbs in there, and even if there's not a lot, you may be one of those people that tend to basically have very poor glucose metabolism. You may have a glucose 6-phosphate deficiency, but have homozygous. I've got heterozygous, and a couple of other things that really means you've got very poor regulation of sugar, and you really need to be on a more species appropriate diet away from that sort of stuff is more than likely. But unless you tell me exactly what you're eating, I can't really say exactly whether it's because that's the most likely thing. It's been a guest on many. Yep. We think. Yep, we covered that. Yep, we covered that. I'll have to check the person out and see and find out. Oh no, I haven't. I fucking forgot. Thanks for reminding me, Bjorn. No, I haven't. I haven't even got back to basically Sky either. You did it wrong. She sent me an email and she said about something and I forgot. Yeah, I've been too many other things involved. 2 women that I've stood up. Not 1, 2. Fuck. They're gonna hate me for not replying. Shit. Thanks, Bjorn, for reminding me. Now I feel bad. Shit. We toss eggs, bacon on cheese through our ground beef, and it tastes like a burger salad. That tastes nice. Yeah. Onions give me a lot of bad gas, even a little bit of onions. Okay. So FODMAP, stick to a low FODMAP diet in that regard. Yes. That's true as well. Boring. Yes. Greek fella starts saying spuds are shit. You try pushing one of those things out of you. see how bad that shit is. Yes, I like my lemons. I can actually even like that. I used to gnaw lemons. I like the sour taste, but in particular on pork, yeah, very much, and sausages. Yes, pork, because mostly my sausages are pork sausages. So I basically use the fork and just put little holes in it, and then just put on top the lemon juice, then turn them over, put some extra holes, put some. Yes. Anyway, crazy things I do. Yeah, I like to have some lemon on crabs. Yeah, crabs are nice actually with lemon juice. Yeah, I have to agree. I actually like cooking crab and putting when it's warm, putting like first on top some butter, let it melt, and then putting on the lemon after, and that sort of lemony, buttery. Oh, that's really nice taste. You should try it. Yes, I agree, Neff, very much. Sometimes I'm able to get some nice nice crabs down in Tasmania, but not always. Depends. Yeah, meat. Yeah, I think a lot of people, if they really were asked, but for a long time in the carnivore community, we had this like demonization, absolute demonization of pork, and I've done a lot to try and actually nip that in the bud that it's bullshit with the stuff that I've done, some of the videos related to that. So yeah, but it's been the PUFA stuff and all that bullshit, which was nonsense in the first place. But yes, even the chimps, they hunt small piglets. Yes, they know where the good stuff is. And now the Greek fella is having to go a go at beef. Yes, I'm having a beef. We have sent the European Commission back there to sort them out. Fucking Euro Nazis. I would set off a leg and lamb, pork loins, chops, bacon, and ground lamb if beef wasn't an option. Exactly. My sentiment. I love fucking bacon. Oh, God, I can literally. I actually went through a whole pack of bacon. There was about 500 grams there of bacon. And, I mean, we're talking about slightly over a pound. And I was still, if I had another pound of bacon, I would have eaten that as well. I go, the smoked stuff, I've shown you before. That is really nice. And I'm going, oh. No, I looked at the time and I realised it was about 7:30 in the evening. And I knew that basically, because that's the time that the IGA store closes in my area, I'm going, oh, shit, I left it too late. Because I tell you, if it was slightly earlier, I was tempted to walk up to the store. It was only about a 3-minute walk to walk up and pick another pack and actually cook it that night. So, yes, it was a bacon frenzy. Yes. And not only that, if you look about it, skin, my skin's pretty good, for a mid 50-year-old. And pork fat is really good, in the composition of it. Very similar to human skin type, so it's got a lot, the profile is very similar. Plus, it's got high levels of niacin compared to any other animal food, which is really important for protecting the skin and improving also energy metabolism in the body and stuff like that. Plus, thiamine, which supports, the electron chain as well. So it's very important in energy production, plus a whole lot of other processes in the body. And it has both those. It's really high. It's got riboflavin as well, and many other things. So, you can't go wrong with pork. So on the nutritional side, and then, it's the taste is wonderful. Sauna to ice bath isn't too bad. Cold only affects the skin, but you still feel hot inside from the sauna. That was my experience. Okay. Oh, you do? Okay. Oh, because it's very quick. The body doesn't have the time to basically make that switch. You only feel the cold on your skin. That's true. Yeah, even when I'm doing the shower thing, I don't feel cold inside. It's on the skin that I feel the cold, and then I sort of get used to it after a while. It's the shock. Oh, it's just it's that immediate thing. And so actually, it's not so bad if it's on my body. It's when you're in the shower, actually, because when you jump in these sort of thing, like you don't immerse your head. You're only immersing your body. But when you're under the shower, you get the head hit first. So I've learnt now to basically sort of lean forward my head and get it in my back on the neck. So I'm getting it in the back of the neck, and I'm not getting it, straight on my head and then, coming down. So it tends to be a bit more harsher when it hits your head. You go, oh! I just had a brain freeze. So yeah, I prefer sort of leaning forward a bit and getting it on down my neck and stuff like that. So it's more tolerable that way. Yeah, hard one to work out. Zombie. Jared's around. Eating makes me tired. 30 minutes pretty regardless of macros. Lots of protein, yeah. Lots of fat, yeah. From milk, lots of carbs. But you don't get a lot it depends on how much milk. But you're trying to put on a bit of weight as well, so that's a bit different. Okay. Yeah. Yes, interesting. Standing up to you're my hero. It's probably why many of them don't stay around. Yes. I always say, let them chase me. Too hard to basically chase women. God. Let them be the desperate ones. I'm almost 100% carnivore, but I am consuming around 1.5 kilograms of fatty meat in one sitting. Okay? After that, I immediately go down like a tranquilized rhino. Okay, that's weird. I've never had that feeling. I mean, I'll look into it. Actually, it's interesting. It's intriguing me because personally, when I eat a lot of meat and stuff like that, I don't. I can I'm out there. I don't know. Maybe I'm adapted slightly differently. I don't know. It intrigues me. So how long have you been period wise? Because it's not. So if you're basically activating hormone sensitive lipase, you're getting enough energy to basically go down like that. For some reason, you're not. I would actually go and get myself checked and check my insulin levels. That's what I would do. I can only think of a couple of things that can do that. If you're exposed to some things like mold or other pathogens or other things, there's a likelihood sometimes that can actually affect some of these hormones. And some people can actually end up running a slightly higher insulin. And as a consequence of that, and a blood sugar, and as a consequence of that, they tend to basically be less insulin sensitive. And as a consequence, if you're consuming a lot, and then your energy requirements goes up because meat has a in order to basically break down meat, you need more energy. If you're not getting enough energy, there is somewhere an energy deficiency for whatever reason. That only explains that you're not getting enough energy. There's an energy blockade somewhere for some reason, whether it's a mitochondrial dysfunction, whether it's mitochondrial damage, or whether have you had cancer in the past. That could explain that one. That people tend to have higher mitochondrial damage. Are there certain pathogens that could potentially affect the mitochondrial functioning? Certain nutrients. There's a lot of different things that could possibly be causing this energy derangement or lack of energy. It's really a lack of energy. And when you're adding quite a bit of meat and quite a bit of stuff that needs to be processed by the digestive system, you need extra energy, which means that you're sucking a whole lot of energy away from your brain down to your basically gut. And you should technically have enough energy to deal with that. You've seen it with vegan Gains when he actually gets comatose by eating too much sugar, and he basically passes out. And it's something similar. That means you can't access fat from your adipose tissue to access additional energy requirements. And it basically means that, there is some problem there in terms of insulin resistance. You can't explain it any other way. I can't, because it's an energy deficit. Now, what's causing it, I don't know, because I don't know your history. I don't know enough. Drop me a line. Send me an email. Tell me exactly what you eat. Tell me exactly what your environment is, whether you've had any exposures in the past, environmental exposures, whether you know where your blood sugars are, whether your insulin, have you tested those things to find out, because they would be interesting if things were not, homocysteine issues, would tell me as well whether some of these things, there are derangements there. Liver enzymes, is your liver functioning properly and regulating these things properly? Sometimes with liver can be a problem as well, because there are important enzymes that are produced in the liver, and if it's not working properly because it's had quite a bit of damage, fibrotic tissue and all that, we may need to consider alpha-lipoic acid plus taurine as supplementation for at least 6 months to a year to fix the problem. So I don't know yet unless I have a bit of a background. So send me some stuff through, because that's not normal. That's usually what happens when people have these deranged energy spikes and then insulin spikes, and then glucose is pushed out of the bloodstream, very low energy, and then you can't access hormone-sensitive lipase fat, and you've busted it in terms of energy, and and so that extra meat would put additional tax in your energy system to digest, and that's why you feel so weak and lethargic and all that. So, but what's causing that energy, situation where you're not getting sufficient? You should be accessing your fat stores and getting the energy you need. You should not be passing out. Doesn't happen to me. Doesn't happen. I eat shitloads of meat. And I've known people like in my family that do that, who are insulin resistant. I mean, my brother-in-law, who was a diabetic, and he would basically, literally having like a big meal with quite a bit of meat, and he would basically feel sleepy because he was insulin resistant. So he couldn't tap into his fat stores for energy. So maybe you haven't resolved even though you're 100% carnivore, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt you that. You may have not resolved an underlying insulin resistant state. I've always found the best way to basically normalize some of these things is I usually get people to do a boron thing to normalize some of the other hormones, because they may be a play to some extent. And I usually go 12 milligrams 1 week, down to 9, down to 6, and down to 3, and then for the remainder of the month, possibly even up to 3 months, down to 3 milligrams, and then off it to normalize those sort of hormones, testosterone, all these sort of things. And also basically looking at basically finding out, doing some blood tests, finding out where your liver is, what state it is in, and also doing a bit of a fast for a couple of days as well will help to basically make you more insulin sensitive. It should temper down that sort of thing. It may be a real bastard in the beginning, and you may on the first day be struggling, and I would say use something like some something like an MCT, like coconut oil, which is an MCT, gives you ketones, gives you energy to sort of break through that first 24 hours of struggle as you're adjusting, So, that's all I can think off the top of my head, but I'd need to have more details to basically give you something a bit better. And Lukey, good to see you, mate. See, now that he goes to bed, he actually gets up earlier. And he pops on this. This cold weather really makes me want to sleep some more. Can't wait for this season to... Hey, you should try Tasmania, mate. Fucking raining today down here and cold and... Maybe get off the OMAD a bit and split your food intake. That would help, but it wouldn't actually... That would be like a Band-Aid solution. Yes, it probably would help. I wouldn't disagree with that. But at the same time, it's not going to fix the underlying condition, and there is some sort of underlying insulin resistance there, and some derangement. But, how much certain other systems are at play, you need to basically test yourself to find out, which is the thing. I feel for you, brother. Have been sleeping a lot too, and had to rain the entire week now. When the sun comes out, I always sleep more than usual Sundays. I actually had a bit of a nap earlier. That's why I got a bit of a spring in my feet, or whatever you want to call it. G'day, Shill. Another person's got up. Just notice you. What's the best way to recover from a pulled muscle? I would basically go and get... I usually do like a Bowen, which is an Australian method, which what they do is they work on not only the muscle area, but also on the nervous system. It's not... There are probably some similarities between Bowen and, the lady that actually does some stuff now with Bart. She does that sort of reset. Bowen actually does sort out work on the nervous system as well, plus that. And I've had, I'd once pulled my sciatic nerve, I went and did Bowen, and the next day I was fine. So, but you can't shower, you can't wash, you have to go, and then the next day, because you don't want the change. It's the temperature. Too much temperature, like heat from the shower, can actually affect the procedure that they've done on the sensitizing the nerves in a certain way, and it tends to, as you sleep, sort of correct itself to some extent. So you may have to do a second one or whatever. But Bowen, I've found, helps. I know it sounds to some people woo-woo or whatever, and some of the concepts that these people believe is a bit woo-woo, but it comes from Chinese. It's sort of a cross between Australian and Chinese medicine, in a sense. But I found relief. So, you may find as well in that regard. Depends on what muscle you pulled, mate. I'm still on. I know. Can you believe it? Yes. Crazy. I'm still on. Exactly. I'm like that, one of the, that little animal, that little furry animal with the Energizer battery. Can never stop. Yes. It's all that beautiful fat. Oh, there's very little left over. Ah, yes. I forgot about my cola. I've got my cola here as well. Non-alcoholic. Yes. I'll leave the alcoholic stuff for Bart. Acupuncture is interesting. Yeah, I do. This is a different one. It says it's called Bowen, and what they do is they press on certain nerves, and it's sort of like a reset for the nerves, and it allows the nervous system to sort of, the brain muscle skeletal system to, so it's a lot of this is a sort of a Western Chinese sort of mix, Bowen, and it's some of the woo woo stuff as this I don't believe in, but I do believe that they're like a bit of like the tribal people that had these sort of through trial and error worked out how certain things worked, and yeah, sort of that's the sort of thing that I've sort of come across anyway. Blinky, definitely. He's a devious muscle puller. You overworked those muscles. Actually, the funny thing is I go up the stairs and down the stairs like I do like 4 or 5 times in the building. And one of the guys at work, he basically tried it. And he said the next day, oh, my calves were aching. And I said, well, you're just not fit enough. I said I was suffering a bit as well, but now my fitness is those muscles actually working better. And so sometimes, we do things like we don't do warm-ups, stuff like that. There's a lot of things that can actually sort of tense the stuff and all that. And usually if you relax a bit and take it easy, it all settles down. But an Epsom bath, I've actually done an Epsom bath when I've had something like that happen to me, and just put Epsom salts in a bath, warm bath, and it really felt great the next day. So it depends how bad it is or whether it's, and so some cases I've gone for Bowen, some cases I've just used Epsom salts with the occasional muscle cramp. I haven't had a muscle cramp for ages, so, maybe I'm doing something right, or it's, don't know. But I think the last time when I slipped and I literally compressed my knee quite a bit. Remember I was telling you all that sort of stuff quite a while back? That was, after that I did get some pain down the leg and stuff like that. It took a while to actually, bloody getting old. Took a while to basically settle down, and did a few things, and then eventually sort of settled down a bit more, and then eventually, got back to normal. But yes. Yes, we get on a carny diet, Dom, and we think we're Superman. I need a refresher. Why do I need more vitamin B when consuming lots of carbs? Because they burn through shitloads of them. That's why. Remember, your liver will end up using more B vitamins when you consume carbohydrates. Way, way more. Plus alcohol. Oh, alcohol, actually, compared to carbohydrates, alcohol really burns through B vitamins. And as I said, if you take 2 B vitamins before you go out drinking, you can actually drink for longer because you're not getting drunk as quick because you're burning through all the B vitamins you've taken. So if you want to basically say, oh, I'm a really strong drinker, no, you young people, I've done all that shit in the past. I am actually a strong drinker. Actually, my youngest is even stronger than me. She's an alcoholic. That woman can just drink me under the table, many others, and she's a tiny little thing. Don't know where she puts it all. Anyway, she's cut back on that. She's sort of realised. She looks at her brother and goes, yes, she's 11 months younger than me, and I look younger than her. So she goes, oh, I better do what Harry's doing. Vanity. That's all I can say. Yes. Yes, yes. Oops, oops. That went bonkers for a moment there. Not you, it's. Yes, yes. And the other thing is you'll need also, Lukey, is a couple of eggs. You need to export that stuff out of your liver with choline, not to be neglected. Get your salt in and do stretching beforehand, Dom. Yes, exactly. Actually, you're right about that. Since I've actually consuming more salt nowadays, I've have to say I've never, before when, and that's another thing that I said to people. A lot of people say, "Oh, magnesium, magnesium." Actually, magnesium made it worse for me. Your body needs a certain level of magnesium and excretes a certain amount. It doesn't need excess amounts. Um, I've never subscribed to that. Exactly, Shell. You good. Thanks for reminding me. I always talk about salt as being a thing that actually gets rid of cramps and stuff like that, and it's way better to use salt than magnesium. And if you use enough salt, you keep in all the other minerals. And if you get enough taurine eating meat, the taurine will regulate those minerals properly. Yes, it's another beautiful job that taurine does, that meat does for you. Okay, where am I? Out of all muscles, I'd have thought calves were the least used in swimming. Never know. Depends on how you swim. You may be using power legs to move through the water like a bullet. I was kicking the water like an 11-year-old who visited the pool for the first time. Okay, Dom. Don't. Oh, God, I'm a child. Yeah, it doesn't work on me. This morning, blood glucose 5.4. Sorry, blood. What? You're confusing me. Oh, the glucose 4 point and ketones 1.4. Yeah, if that's what your body did, the blood sugar was probably the dawn effect. you know, Cortisol goes up. It increases your, if you don't want to register the dawn effect when you take your blood sugar in the morning, you know, like last time I actually, I think I said to Ling, and it was 4.8. And it's normally much lower down in the lower fours and all that. But that's the dawn effect. It goes 4.8, tick, jumped up. Why? Because of the dawn effect, the wake up juice, from cortisol that spikes in the morning. So that's all that is early in the morning. But it doesn't affect, because that sort of thing is a natural thing. It doesn't affect, basically prevents insulin from basically rising. The there's a counter-regulatory effect, and as a consequence, you basically get that extra energy. That's all it is. So your ketones are still going to stay up because you're keto adapted and all that. So don't worry about it, Jay. There's going to be variations between days, and there's going to be variations between people. So if you've got good ketone levels, check later when you're 2 hours already awoken. Then check, and I tell you, they will be much lower. So don't get too wound up. Let's not micromanage these things to oblivion. Other dirty things came into my mind there, Michelle, so I better move on. Snap. Crackle and pop. Sounds like a commercial. A Kellogg's commercial. Move on, Harry. See what you do to me? Oh, damn. I do taekwondo, do for 15 years and warm up and cool down muscles. Shaking, banking is a must, or I would not walk up a stair the next day. Fair enough. There you go. Very well put, Neff. When I was seeing my sister a few weeks ago, she introduced me to, here's my sister looking like some bombshell. You have such a great relationship. Sounds like mine. I ate tons of salt. That's not it. Fair enough. It's not like a cramp. It's a pulled muscle. There's a lump there. It's a big lump there. What? Doesn't sound right. Go and get it checked out. That doesn't sound right. It shouldn't be a lump there. That's a bit weird. So do please check it out. Sometimes you can also have, like, the upper part where you come down from your glutes, because I had that for a while. This was ages ago. Remember, I was talking about my glutes and all that, and I had to massage them because you sit all day, and basically had like a rolling pin, which I still use, and some of that can actually radiate down and really like pull sharp. Like, it's not a muscle cramp, but like a pull, and that's because these muscles through the actual knee joint are sort of connected, and they can pull on each other. And also, when I injured myself, that really, so yes, those things can happen, and that's not exactly a cramp. It's like the muscle is pulled, exactly, and sometimes it may not be the actual, that the part that you think is the problem. It could be all the way up, radiating down from the glutes or in your lower back or whatever. So yeah, you may have to get somebody that knows more about musculoskeletal stuff to check it out for you if it's constantly doing it. Ah, yes. I bet she was shocked. It's like my sister when she turned up from Greece. She was shocked as well. And then the first thing she asked me is, "What are you doing?" And she switched over time. Took her a while to go, I think once she was with me for a couple of months, she started switching, and then she noticed her asthma was getting better, and now it's completely gone, and now she's a completely changed woman. So yes, I bet all those things really helped. They make the difference. Yep, exactly. Yeah, somebody needs to sort of check you out, mate. Check you out. Yeah, it's crap. He says a lot of things that I disagree with. Exactly. It's 120, even for a large person, it's about 120 milligrams, and it can be slightly less for smaller people. So if you look at the amount we're getting in from the diet, us carnivores in particular, we get more than that. I mean, I tend to get about 200 odd, sometimes even up to 300 odd from my diet. So do I need a supplement? Definitely not. My body's getting more than it's excreting. It'll probably get rid of it through the urine anyway. So what a waste of money. Yeah, look, a lot of people just haven't looked at that research that I've actually, because I've done the videos on potassium, on magnesium, and showing the exact excretion rates that the body goes and how much you need. It's pretty much bullshit. And to regulate those minerals so you don't lose as much, you don't excrete as much, You need taurine, which regulates those minerals and the fluids, the intra and extracellular fluids. So if you're getting enough meat, not only are you getting enough of these nutrients, but also you're getting the key nutrient, taurine, that regulates the damn stuff in the bloodstream, in the intra and extracellular fluids. That's another video they have to make, isn't it? To convince people to have some ammo for you guys. Yeah, I know. Doesn't it feel great? Being, that the younger one looks older than you and you sitting there pretty and going, oh, I'm younger, I'm prettier than you. You don't even have to say it. You just sit there and look and you go, yes, Shell. I know the feeling. But you know what? Maybe it'll motivate it, like it motivated my younger sister to do something about herself and improve herself. She is. That's good to hear. See, there you go. You're an example to another member of your family. It's good. Oops. Great. Sounds perfect. Yes. Anyway, I'm going to pull the pin at this stage. Had a lot of questions and stuff like that talking about. If there's any last minute questions somebody's desperate to have me answer, throw it in there. Otherwise, it's been a nice evening. I do have somebody that wants a bit of assistance tonight, so I'm basically gonna somebody that needs a bit of info on how. Well, I won't go into it anyway. They can tell you themselves when they decide. It's sort of some sort of debating thing with some vegan cockwomble doctor. So I'm helping that person out. So giving them a few tips and tricks on debating, stuff like that. So I've got that for tonight, and that's in about, what is it, a bit over an hour from now. So I'm going to make sure that I've got a few more things that are in the basket. I'll need to put them up as well. And then after that, I've got that. And then after that, after an hour at 12, head for the bed. An example, not trying to be, yes, just doing my best to not die from a horrible path. Yeah, exactly. You're welcome. We'll be watching replay. Thank you. Appreciate it. It all helps with the YouTubia AI. So, yes. It's been a pretty good day. There's a couple of still. The only thing that I'm really disappointed in myself that I haven't I've sort of allowed myself to basically be sidetracked with a lot of other things, and just I need to clamp down and try and do some of those damn, vegan, the myths and falsehoods of veganism. I've got that whole bloody list that I used to pin everywhere. And I've got it's all there. I've got the studies. I've got all the damn thing. I can do all the short videos. It's just, I'm always finding other things. I'm sidetracking myself. I need to basically focus and do the damn things. Anyway, so I am going to be taking a bit of leave later this month, as I said, about a week. So I'm taking the whole week and then I'm flexing off on the Monday. So that's a bit over a week all up. And so I should have more time to, beyond cleaning out and dumping all that other shit out. I should have a bit of extra time by then, towards the end of this month, to really work in the afternoons when I'm not doing anything in the rooms, and really start pumping out some of those little videos for you guys then to be able to use against the cockwombles of this world and whack them over the head. So I sort of need to get my act together on that front. I'm dragging my heels, so to speak. So yes, need to motivate myself a bit more. Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate it. Thanks, Shell, as well. Fluffy Rainbow, as always, thank you. And yes, it's I sort of need to sort of motivate myself a bit more and get the stuff out there. Yes, yeah, probably end up in doing like a blitz, doing it in 1 week. Sometimes I'm just as bad as Bart. He sometimes says, "Oh God," he's got other things that are actually come up through the week, and then he just dedicates one day. He locks himself in and just does one video after another, a whole series of things, and then he goes through and cuts it all up. So he will just do a whole one. Record it and then basically cut it all up and then just make separate little videos of the thing. So yeah, that's how I did. Remember the couple that there was a couple of their weeks where I just was releasing one after the other. Well, that was a similar case. That's what I did, and I need to get my head back into that mode and pump out get that whole series out. I need to get that series out. 5-minute little videos, that really just pull apart all the arguments that these cockwombles keep on throwing around, which are bullshit. So, which will help you guys. When you hear something, you'll be able to say, oh, hold on, check this out. That's bullshit. You'll have whether you use my videos and post them here or there is your business, but at least you'll have the stuff, the information, which will be concise, and the good polemics. You'll be able to just go, bang, I've got this is, so you'll be able to just hit them hard immediately. And that's the whole purpose, because then it basically, it enables you guys to go out there and do the good fight, because we all sort of have to pitch in, because they're trying to basically turn this world into a kibble-eating vegan paradise, not more like a vegan hellhole. Yes, that's the best way. But yeah, exactly. He's got his act together in that regard, So, look, I'm around smart little cookies here and there, and they do sometimes provide me with. Sometimes you get into like in the weeds, and sometimes you need somebody that's sitting further away to go, think about this sort of stuff. So he's having some audio things, issues, and he's asked me for a few things, and I've sort of passed on a bit of information for him to help him out. So it's it's a community thing. We all help each other out. If we've got advice, we put feelers out. Yes. Oh yes, she loves Harry's 30-minute good nights. Yeah, I know. Yes, the extended seers. Oh look, guys, I actually, I love actually chatting with people and having, community and interacting with people and helping, this. I enjoy that. So for me, it's not a dull thing. I have to look at the time and go, oh shit, I have to get up, I have to do this and all that, and I have to pull the pin on it. But I actually really enjoy it and all that sort of stuff. So it's not as much. It's entertaining. It's not a chore for me. It's probably the reason why I can do so many hours and it doesn't bother me. Where I know other people, they see it like I don't do my live streams. I find actually doing the little videos are more of a chore. The live streams where I can sit back and just relax and take it easy and chat with you guys and all that, I find that much more easygoing. So maybe because I used to, as a youngster, I used to do a lot of debating and stuff like that. So I could just think off the cuff, from all the knowledge I had, I could bring things together and go, what sounds plausible, logical, so I can construct an argument or a conversation piece very fast. So it's something that I've acquired through the way I've socialized in as a youngster, which it makes it easy. And it's I'm a very comfortable and easy conversationalist, so to speak. So but yes, that's true. You guys are just as bad. Some of you guys are just as bad as me. Enjoy your training, mate, and don't neglect the sun either. You're welcome, mate. You're welcome. Anyway, I'm gonna pull the pin, and I will say goodnight to everyone. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. And I will see you lovely people next week. So, see yous. And don't forget to hit the like button as well on your way out, as Bart would say.